I'm good. I'll just take up some of those.
You're good to go.
Yeah. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walk this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. And with that, we'll call the regular council meeting of December 19th, 2023 to order. Council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Administration.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So I do have two changes to the agenda. Action item 6.2, we are recommending that be canceled. And that was just due to our partners in that grant no longer wanting to pursue. And to add the January 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of council as the new item 6.4.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. And council, can we have a motion to adopt as amended? Councillor Chambers.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 19th, 2023 as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Council, any discussion? Councillor Stashik, did you want to speak to that? Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. I believe we need a motion to amend the agenda first before we can accept it as amended.
Thank you. And I was looking for the motion to amend the agenda, not accept. So thank you. So Councillor Chambers motioned that we amend the agenda as presented by administration. Council, any discussion? Then we'll call the question that council adopt the agenda or amend the agenda as recommended by administration. Councilors, please vote now. We'll try that again, maybe. Minor technical details. And that motion's carried unanimously. Council, we're looking for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda as amended for December 19th, 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, in discussion? Then we'll call the question that council adopt the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 19th, 2023 as amended. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Brings us to item 3 of our agenda. Council minutes for adoption. Item 3.1 regular. There we go. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the regular council minutes for December 5th, 2023, the committee of the whole for December 23rd, or sorry, December 5th, 2023, and the special council meeting of December 7th, 2023, please.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting from December 5th, 2023, the committee of the whole meeting from December 5th, 2023, and the special council meeting from December 7th, 2023. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Which brings us to item 4 of our agenda, Citizens Minute with Council. Are there any citizens in the audience today? Thank you. Please step up to the please state your name and you have a minute to say your statement.
Hi, my name is Carol Tinge. I'm a member of the Hinton Golf Course, golfer, obviously, not right. And I'm here to speak to the development of the par 9. Surprise, surprise. I wrote it things. I accept that the par 999 development would be an asset to the town if it's built and run as presented by Mr. Yes, that is the issue that remains seen. My biggest concern is the changes to the golf course that would negatively affect the quality of play. And I'm just wondering, why is the golf course being sacrificed for this project? Because it doesn't have to be. It's a recreational asset owned by the town and its taxpayers. And it's the only golf course we have. I don't have a choice of going anywhere else in town. I can't afford to golf in Jasper. I don't want to take the time to go to Edson or cash. Spew toxic gases into the atmosphere and contribute to global warming. I want to golf in the town that I live. Make this a win-win situation for all parties. The Hinton Golf Course should be enhanced and improved. This club's long history of providing a quality golf experience shouldn't be compromised to satisfy the commercial interests of this development. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you for keeping it to a minute. Are there any other citizens? Please state your name. Take a minute.
Members of council, my name is Bernie Kreiner. As a citizen, I want to speak to two items that are very important that are on your agenda this evening. One is housing, and I feel very blessed that we have great social agencies like HELP who are really addressing and advancing things that are very important to the working poor in our community. I hope that council will take their information seriously because unfortunately, housing was dropped from the strategic plan of the town of Hinton and should be back on as one of the important things for our future growth, I believe. Secondly, the par 999 project. I believe economic development is very important to community, and I'm glad to see a project with $150 million investment is before council to be considered. I do believe that developers have to understand they have an obligation to work with the community to make these projects happen. And I'm hopeful that there's still more meetings to occur before the public hearing because solutions can be made, but only through dialogue and win-win approaches. Those are my thoughts. Best wishes in your new year.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Nissen and members of council. My name's Brad Kopp. I'm here in my capacity as the president of the Hinton Golfing Society. Although I'm encouraged by the fact that there's recently been some difficult questions asked, it would still seem that there's people in this room who have become hung up on moving forward with this par 99 development at any cost. I'm very concerned about the structure of this deal and more concerned about what kind of promises have been made to the developer. It strikes me as odd that they would be so heavily invested in this project without rezoning approved. I wonder, what do they know that we don't? Furthermore, in conversation with some of you, it's become apparent to me that the desire to move forward is at least partly rooted in the town's inability to generate any significant economic development over the course of the last number of decades. With the exception of hotels, gas stations, fast food joints, and none of which are bad, by the way, unfortunately, the town really has nothing to show for its economic development efforts for a long period of time. As someone from Hinton, that's unfortunate to see. And as a local business person, I'm at the front of the line of people who want to see this community grow and prosper. However, I wanted to take a moment to remind you guys all, as our decision makers, about another area that's sorely lacked in Hinton for a lot of years, and that's recreation. Last week, my kids had all of their hockey and ringette practices canceled because of malfunctions at the arena. If the swimming pool isn't closed for maintenance, it's rare to go there and not find that one or more of the components aren't shut down due to mechanical failures. Last week, when we couldn't go to hockey, we went swimming, and not surprisingly, the little pool was closed. The cherished Beaver Boardwalk has become a laughingstock. Ball diamonds and soccer fields are weed infested and poorly maintained. Tennis courts are mediocre at best. And other amenities such as an indoor track, a water slide, or a community gymnasium don't exist. While other communities our size have made significant investment in recreation, this town has chosen to play it safe. And as opposed to making difficult decisions to provide our residents with great municipally driven recreational opportunities, we haven't. Now, after only a couple years of owning the golf course, it could be the next victim. We've landed ourselves in a really tough position, it seems, having to move forward with this economic development initiative or golf course and.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. That's been more than a minute. We're gonna have, that doesn't matter. We're gonna have to move on, Mr. Kopp. There's a lot of people that want to speak today. Okay,
The plans in your agenda package put forth by the developer are nonsensical from any golfer's standpoint. We've conveyed that to them and to town admin. And Mr. Hassan and some of your staff can confirm that we first told them about this in August of 2022. Even though the drawings are impressive and look very expensive, they don't make any sense. Safety, functionality, and playability are not considered, and these changes are sure to cause significant damage to the golf club, compromising revenue and its value. By the way, the golf course is a town asset, and I assume that should worry you. While I agree with the mayor's statement last meeting about being a good business partner, I would hope the council realizes that it should not only be a good business partner to the smooth talking developer with fancy drawings, but also to the long-standing not-for-profit society that is the Hinton Golf Club. I realize that not everyone in Hinton golfs, but the presence in this room tonight tells me that not everyone in Hinton wants a very vague resort, training center, strip mall on their doorstep either. There's more questions than answers at this stage, and for that reason, the rezoning of the land should be a decision that's taken with a great deal of caution. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Kopp.
Yay.
Good day, ma'am.
For the same reasons. We see a developer walking into our town and wanting to take away one of our assets, our gems. In my opinion, nobody's taking the impact of what taking hole 16 is going to do. It's a 432-yard hole that is one of the main holes of why people come here to play. It's a tabletop green. It's beautiful. You take that out, you've got 3 par 3s next to each other. I already voiced that in a previous council meeting. It's not going to be playable. You're not looking at the impact. Yes, par 9 is doing a development. It's beautiful. You look at it all. I printed it all. I went through it all. It's a fluff piece, in my opinion. It's not going to work for our course. It's going to bury us. We're not going to have one. We're not going to have one to play in our town. It's been here for 64 years. People put their heart and soul into that course. It needs to stay. It needs to play, and it needs to be the gem we want it to be in our town asset. In my opinion, we all like recreation and sports. We are an outdoor community. That's what we are. We're a mountain town. We have a beautiful golf course that needs a little work, but we can do it if we put our minds to it and put the right development in the right place, not smack dab in the middle of our course. In my mind, if you're a recreational minded person or a mountain person, where we live, it's a quiet community. We love our community. If I was to take, as a developer, one of our arenas off the map, go down level 1, take that away from your recreation of your hockey, your ringette, your sledge hockey, your figure skating, your events that you have in the summertime. If you took one of those arenas away from our sports recreation center right now and said, too bad, it's a development. learn to live with it. How do you think other people in this town that are recreation minded would accept that? They would not. Wholeheartedly not. I want to see the question and answer par 99. I want to know when it is, the date, and it better not be before January 16th next meeting, and no time for people to show up. I want to see an afternoon event and I want to see an evening event. And I want other people in our town that work shift work that or wherever, if they're out of town, to be able to have enough time to come and ask all the questions I have in this book. And that's what I want to see from council.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak with council for a minute with council who hasn't already yielded their time? Sir.
From Wolf Hill. R 999, Mr. Herzan.
Sir, can you please give the microphone for the? Sir, can you please speak into the microphone? This is a public meeting.
You have not been listening to the citizens of our community. At best, your hearing has been selective, and I would suggest the same with council. This community does not want your development if it is at the expense of our golf course. I hope that's clear enough. If you want to be welcomed and supported in Hinton, I suggest that you initiate a pause in this process, give us a meaningful dialogue at a public forum, and importantly, if you want a hole in our golf course, you replace it. You build another one. Part 990 has yet to have a meaningful discussion with the public or the golf course. Well, actually, last meeting, they agreed to tweaks. They said that twice, tweaks, really. And here we are partway through the approval process. I don't know how we ever got this far without somebody, council, consultants, whatever, saying that's a pretty awkward fit. Did nobody here think of that? Our planning department? And you folks have gone to great lengths to indicate we're not partners. Well, I'll tell you something, you're implicit in this because somebody here said to or nodded their head, gave approval to Mr. Herzan and 999 and said, oh yeah, that'll work if you squeeze them into the spare hole. Somebody indicated that was going to be okay. Might not be in writing, but somebody here indicated it. The sad part of this saga, Hinton could have had both. We could have had our jewel of a golf course, the Enchanted Forest. We could have maintained that, improved it. And Lord knows we've got enough land around here. We could have incorporated Mr. Herzan's development as well. Instead, we're going to lose our golf course. I'm saying pause the process until we get this sorted out.
Thank you, sir.
Merry Christmas.
Is there anyone else who hasn't yet yielded their time? Sir, I believe you yielded your time for Mr. Kopp.
Seriously, this is about transparency. This is how you guys act.
Sure, take a minute, but please keep it to a minute.
You know, I see a lot of passionate people in this room tonight. And I really wish that most of you guys would start feeling the same way. Okay, in regards to the Part 999 project, having an expression of interest open within 30 days alone raises questions and red flags. This property, as many of us see, is valued as one of our Hinton gems. How would a business be able to put forth a business plan in 30 days? And I question how this expression of interest was put out and where. Selling it at recreation value and then rezoning it to commercial increases the value of this tenfold. On top of this, what are the costs with infrastructure along with the free tax breaks and what else? This raises a few eyebrows. And yes, some of us consider this criminal. I was also hoping your friends at Part 999 can give us some clarification tonight as to what a strip mall is, or as they now say, a retail village. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that our citizens are given the more than the extended minute of time during this process. And if I could speak to that briefly, is that obviously we have citizens who cared enough to come out tonight. They're very passionate about the subject. Everybody's been respectful but passionate so far, in my opinion. I would like to give everybody who would like to speak as much time as they need to express their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. So council, we have a motion on the floor to extend the minute to give citizens the time they need to express themselves. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council will call the question that we provide sufficient time for citizens to express their opinions over the given minute for the remainder of this minute with council. CEO Panasic? Nope. Can we get a vote for that? Oh, excellent. So council, call the question. Please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council, for taking that off of my back. Are there any other citizens in the room that would like to speak with council?
Thanks. I'm Dooley Nelson. I appreciate extending the time right before I got up to speak, but I'll try to keep it quite brief. At a really high level, I think a project like this could be transformative for our community in a great way. I think there's huge economic development potential, but I think we just need to make sure there's enough parameters in place to make sure the golf course is taken care of, the community is taken care of, and the development is what the development is. What I'm here to talk to today is super boring. It's about the commitments that have been made and haven't necessarily been followed through yet. So from the town side, at the last meeting, the community was promised a thorough update, including drawings in one easily located spot, will be shared on social media and all available channels and posted around the government center. We had to dig 5 layers deep within the town website to find that kind of 1-page document that led to a 4-page document, and the town didn't release any drawings. So I would just ask that it be shared in a place where people that don't surf council agendas can find it. Last January at the ASP update, it had been confirmed that the lost hole would be replaced by a hole built to a similar size and configuration. And that's something that hasn't been followed through with yet, as far as I can tell from the drawings. I'm not a passionate golfer, but from what I see, it's still a significantly shorter hole than originally. And then for par 999, at the last meeting, there was a lot of talk about December 15th and a landing page and a community forum and a place that people can go for all of the updates and an LED screen. So, and then mail outs as well as part of that. So that I haven't seen anything of yet. The open house has already been spoken about. There's been no date set for that. We did get, as part of the agenda today, a slide deck of kind of where the project's at that was dated in August. I wish that would have come to the community a little bit earlier. If it was available to the public in August, it would have been great to have access to. So at a really high level, I just hope that both council, really just council, ensures that all of the commitments that have been made by both the developer and by administration or council through direction get followed through with prior to proceeding through the public hearing. The public hearing was delayed so that we could get all of this information, and none of it's come through yet. So apologies that was more like 90 seconds, but thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens in attendance who wish to speak with council? Seeing none, CAO, do we have any online participants who wish to speak with Minute for Council?
No, we do not.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. That brings us to item 5 of our agenda, delegations and presentations. Item 5.1, the Hinton Employment and Learning Place presentation presented by Dina Fuller.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Vanessa LaFleur. I am the homelessness and at risk of homelessness coordinator at HELP.
And I'm Dina Fuller. I'm the director at Hinton Employment and Learning Place. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today, and we will try and keep it under 10 minutes.
And we'll keep the momentum of the passion rolling. Too,
Yeah.
so.
Hey, what is homelessness? There are many people that are homeless. There's many reasons for homelessness, and trust me, nobody wants to be homeless. So I'll let Vanessa talk a little bit about that.
So according to the Homeless Hub, there are 3 distinct reasons why people become homeless. Number 1 is due to structural factors, depending on housing availability, rental rates, low income, lack of jobs, discrimination, access to affordable housing, all of those things. Homelessness and poverty are inextricably linked. People who are impoverished are frequently unable to pay for the necessities such as housing, food, their utilities, childcare, all of those things, healthcare, education. Poverty can mean a person is one illness, one accident, or one paycheck away from living on the streets. Number 2 is system failures. So that looks like lack of support for immigrants and refugees, difficult transitions from child welfare. This is where the youth fall through the category of youth homelessness, which we do have in Hinton. Inadequate discharge from planning from hospitals, corrections, addiction facilities, lack of resources and supports. Number 3 is individual circumstances. So disabilities, including mental health and addictions, including brain injury, FAS and FASD, house fire, which we know recently that has affected many people in our community, relationship issues, domestic violence, including seniors who are experiencing abuse and neglect, job loss, and poverty. So I just wanted to point out quickly that the youth fall within all 3 of those categories.
So in March of 2023, we conducted a housing and service estimation here in Hinton, and we discovered 103 community members were experiencing housing insecurity. But we can tell you it's a heck of a lot more than that. We see more than that number of people within our organization in a month. So reasons for housing insecurity in Hinton are low wages, inability to afford rent or mortgage, and mental health issues is what was discovered. The top 3 supports that people needed were basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, water, support services, and financial help, like income support. So what does homelessness look like in Hinton? I'm going to let Vanessa share a few stories about some people.
So these are actual cases of unique individuals that reside in Hinton. The names, because of confidentiality and everything, all of that has been changed, but the information that I give you is accurate and correct. Patty is a 38-year-old female living with serious interruptive mental health issues along with addictions. Patty can be stable as long as she gets her medical injection on time and regularly. However, her state declines if this is not kept up with. She faces severe discrimination from any potential landlords due to her being well known in the community. No one will rent to her as her history of rentals has significantly damaged any prospective future possibilities. Help staff see her in the office regularly, offer supports such as food and housing discussions. RCMP do get involved with her when needed. She currently lives in a camper that needs to be moved sometimes every couple of days or every couple of weeks, depending on where it's at. Options of places to move the camper are running out. It is costly to hire someone for her to move it every time that she's told to. There's no stability in this, and she does not qualify for the women's shelter. Rebecca is a 33-year-old female single mother. She fled domestic violence and was forced to send her 3 children to go and stay out of town with relatives while she slept on a friend's couch and was looking for work and a home so that they could be reunited. We assisted her with income support applications and rental applications. Trevor is a 16-year-old male going to a local high school who is sleeping on a friend's couch for now. It is not a safe place. and he doesn't feel safe being there. He is unable to live at home due to family breakdown and an unsafe environment. He works with the school counselor. He needs shoes, winter gear, and a stable home and some sort of income to contribute to his living costs. Very few resources are available to him because he is a youth and he feels like there's nowhere to turn. He has slept outside several times. Our community members are severely at risk when the temperatures turn. They're at risk of death. There's no way to sugarcoat that or to make it sound any more pleasing to one's ear.
Sure. So we have, do you want to just share the story about the family here? We're just gonna share it.
Sure. So we have a brief video here. This is a family that came into Hinton. They were on their dad was on the way to Edmonton for work purposes. And as he got closer, he contacted the employer who had told him he would provide accommodations for him and his family for 3 months until he got settled. He got in contact with the employer in Edson to tell him that he would be there in a couple hours. And the employer then told him the offer was no longer available. They turned around in an unreliable vehicle, not sure where to go. They wound up in Hinton at a local parking lot where the vehicle broke down. It had to be pushed out of the way from the gas pump and further into the parking lot, where they ended up sleeping, 5 of them, in that car for 6 days. Currently, they are staying at a local hotel in Hinton. We were able to get a kitchenette hotel for them. And fortunately, this hotel has 2 separate rooms that can be used as bedrooms. And one of the boys, because there is 5 of them, one of the boys actually has to sleep on, this is the kitchenette. One of the boys actually has to sleep on the floor every night. But all 5 of them are in this hotel room. And this is how they have been staying here for the past week after staying in their car in Hinton, a parking lot, for 6 days.
I can't find it. I'm sorry.
Just a bit of background. Mom has pretty severe health issues. She suffers from, well, she gets grand mal seizures. So she's on medication and she has a lot of mini seizures. And she also has scoliosis. Can you just, maybe we'll start with Mom and Dad. Can you just give me a brief description of your situation and what it's been like for you and how long and things?
I've been homeless for about 7 years, living in a car, and difficult to find a home stability for my family.
And what's caused the difficulty? Why has it been hard to find a home?
There's been, people say too many, and too much rent, and there's no place to house me.
Okay. And how has that impacted you?
Quite bad. A lot of stress on my shoulder, having mini seizures quite frequently, and I'm just hoping to find a place to live here in Hinton, to call home.
Okay. And so those challenges that you talked about, what challenges when you're actually living in the vehicle have you faced?
No food. To stay warm. Clothing, water. Okay. And Dad? Cliff?
Like Denise was saying, like about 6-7 years living in the vehicle. Challenges would be no legroom, no heat, no food.
That's where it stops there.
These are people living in our town right now. There we go. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about our homelessness program and what we are doing right now and what our plans are in the future.
So first off, I want to bring attention to our vision. We envision a community in which no one is left out in the cold and a community where everyone has a warm place to live. The mission that we are trying to do and that we're sticking to is to assist, mentor, and empower those in experiencing difficulties in overcoming barriers to accessing and sustaining stable, affordable housing. The core values that we consider when we work with our clients are respect, accepting one for who they are, even when they're different than you. Integrity, meeting our clients where they're at and understanding their perspective. And community, working with and building relationships with other agencies in the community. And why do we do this? Well, housing is more than 4 walls and a roof. It's where people and families thrive and children learn and grow. Housing helps us to stay employed, do better in school, and access community services. And then we just, we have a list of all of the different services that we offer, like income support, applications, meals. We've got Freddie's room, helping people get ID, different things like that.
So we've been open since August of 2018 for Freddie's Homeless Resource Room. And in July 1st, 2022, we opened our day space. So some of the stats that we can share with you are from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. And you could see how many people we served in a year. Unique individuals using the day space, 222 unique people. That's more than 100 people that we see on our homelessness estimation. Unique individuals using Freddie's, 96, meals given out, 1,618. This is in a year. So if we look from now, from July 1st until November 30th, we're like on par to almost double or more than double what we're doing. So it's getting worse out there for people. People are living in campers, they're living in cars, they're living in tents in this weather. And this is an honest reality in our town. And I know we don't always see it. There's a lot of hidden homelessness in Hinton, but it is there and it is really prevalent. So some of the initiatives that we had our emergency shelter. So we had the opportunity to rent an apartment to emergency house some of our most chronic homeless clients. And we got some funding from the town for the community grant program for this. So 171 nights were utilized out of a possible 184. So that's a 93% usage. It's huge. That just shows such a need for something in Hinton. And so 14 unique individuals utilized this space. And we're very happy to say that 9 out of 14 people that utilize that space, we were able to help find permanent housing. So this helps. This gets people transition from homelessness, permanent housing. We've done the MAT program before. So this is basically what it is, a MAT program. You lay mats on the floor and people have a place to sleep overnight. And we do have the opportunity to do this again with the help of the Grace Lutheran Anglican Church. However, insurance is impossible to get for a reasonable price. We were just quoted $20,000 for 5 months of operation. It's impossible. We can't do that. Everything will increase. We'll need lots of volunteers. Staff can't be alone. So this is it's pretty impossible to do for us right now. There's something else we can do, warming space. We can do it a couple different ways. We could do it a couple of warming trailers. So like ATCO trailers along with washroom facilities for people. And it would only be open when the temperature met fell between predetermined thresholds. So we would have to determine what that is, -17, -20, It depends. Right now it's -3 and it feels pretty darn cold out there. So, then it would only be open in the evening. And it doesn't necessarily have to be ACO tape trailers. We can even think like the rec center. Why can't the rec center be open, right? If it's staffed and it by security, that's an option as well. It's just meant for an emergency warm-up center, not intended for sleeping. So we'll get into some long-term solutions of supportive housing. So supportive housing where people can't live on their own without supports. We picture a small community where they live by themselves, with a common space, common kitchen area, where we have staff on site to help them out. So we did receive a quote for some mini homes. Each has a tiny home and they kind of look like this, which they would have to be customized a little bit more to have less windows, and all the materials inside would have to be easy to fix if they were damaged. And that's another thing when we're dealing with homelessness, is a lot of people have mental problems that they start wrecking stuff, but that's where they're at, right? And so there's no reason they shouldn't be housed just because of that. So if we make it easy to clean, easy to fix up, there shouldn't be a problem. Some other ideas that we have is to maybe convert an existing building into supportive living complex. We've talked talking to the United Church, if they choose to sell, maybe renovate it into a supportive living area. And the other thing too is legalized encampments. Now, Halifax has been doing this. They have 6 new designated locations that they're allowed 4 and 12 tents. And the supports are provided on site. Security is provided, bathroom facilities are provided, garbage and water delivery is there. So there's an option as well, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be something big. It can be something that's designated just as an encampment for tents. We also got a quote for ATCO trailers. So it's 6 individual self-contained units. It's $250,000. This is sort of the floor plan of them. They all have their own washrooms, a little fridge and little, what do you call it? Little
Kitchenette.
stove. Yeah, kitchenette. And then just some costs that it would cost. We were talking to them about renting it for 6 months, and these are just the costs. And I'm sure you saw that in your whoops, where I go back. There we go. So how can the town help? So you can provide support with grant writing for our supportive housing units. I'm sure some of you have done that before. Be flexible with zoning, redesignation for existing buildings and property and locations. Provide land property taxes for a supportive housing project. Be on board and proactive in looking for long-term housing solutions together with us. And be advocates for our homeless community members, to raise your voice to our community, to provide awareness and work towards erasing the stigma people have towards our homeless people. This is so important because everything you see on Facebook is negative, but it's not all negative out there. And make a team and join our coldest night of the year fundraising walk on February 24th. More info to follow on that. So what do we need today? So we need to prevent our most vulnerable community members from dying from exposure this winter. We need to be proactive and provide a warming shelter during the cold spells. We cannot afford insurance security costs to run this program. We just don't have the funding. We haven't had any luck with grants for this year. So we need to look at a warming center option to get something set up as soon as possible before the cold weather hits. We would like to work closely with the town, provide our expertise in policy, procedure, development, training, provide basic needs such as food, water, personal items, and the supports that they need. So we're asking the town to look into warming center options and find a solution that will keep our clients safe this winter until we can find solutions in the future.
And I just wanted to add also, while we're wrapping up here, is, like, we believe that it's no one's job to sit anywhere in this room and judge anybody for where they're at in life, no matter how they got there. It's imperative that we as a community find a solution to help those most vulnerable people in need, no matter how they got there. No one is aware of the traumas and the circumstances that got people to become addicts, that got people to become homeless, No one is aware of how or why someone is born with mental illness. Regardless of what the circumstances are or how they got there, there are people in this community that are in need. And as a community, it is our duty to help them. It's not our duty to judge them. Our most vulnerable people in the community have no voice. That's where I come in. I become their voice. We acknowledge that there is this idea of NIMBYism in Hinton, in our community, the whole not in my backyard. We have to change this way of thinking from not in my backyard to yes, in my backyard, because it does exist, whether we like it or not, and whether or not we want it to be happening in our community. It's here, it's real. So we would like to take a prevention and intervention approach with our projects that we have in mind. And there's many myths and stereotypes that people believe about homelessness. A lot of this is misinformation, and it is problematic as it further contributes to the stigmatization of a population that is already marginalized.
Thank you. And we can only hope our community can be as passionate about our homelessness program as they are about the golf course.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Council, any questions for the delegates? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that will bring us to item 5.2 on our agenda, R999 presentation presented by Amira Hassan, James Tour, Dr. Walter Jameson, and Wade Horrocks.
Good evening, Mayor. First of all, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to thank you for letting us present in front of you. This was my brilliant idea, by the way. It wasn't Amir's. In our last meeting, I suggested maybe it would be a good idea to get in front of you all, and then you could hear about the master plan for PAR 999's Golf Lands project right from the horse's mouth. I'm the urban designer, land planner, landscape architect, whatever you'd like to call me. So I'm going to go through the PDF booklet, which you've all seen very briefly, but I'd like to start kind of at a higher level. I met Amir, about 2 years ago now. He phoned me up out of the blue, and he had this vision for this project in Hinton. And I had never heard of Hinton. I've obviously heard of Alberta. And so I was quite curious after my conversation with him, but his program was very intriguing. As you all know, you're well aware of the program because you're the one that invited PAR 999 to the table through this EOI process. And so when I Googled Hinton, I went, oh my gosh, like it's right on the doorstep of an incredible national park. Like this is a real gem and not very many people know about it. And anecdotally, today is my birthday. And I got a very pleasant, lots of birthday greetings, but one from my ex-wife, also from my current wife. And my ex-wife, I told her, she asked, how's your birthday going to be? And I said, I don't know. I'm presenting to council, and it might be a bit of a challenge with, the golf course folks behind me right now, but we'll make the best of it. But and then I got another text from her about 15 minutes later, and she said, I had to look up Hinton to see where it was. So there you have it, right? And when I first came to Hinton that July, I had some extra time, so I explored Hinton. I found the boardwalk. I spent some time walking on the golf course. I got a sense of the place. Obviously, I found Starbucks, being more of a city slicker. And Hinton is an incredible community. It's absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. I hail from Ontario originally. It does remind me a little bit about of Northern Ontario, but it has the Rocky Mountains. And I cut my teeth partway through university as a night cleaner at the Chateau Lake Louise. And so I spent a nice winter season in the national park, the Banff National Park. And that's really where my heart lies. And that's why I moved out west to live in the mountains as well. So one of the expertise I have is resort planning. Mira's project is a very much a hybrid project. There's nothing like it in Canada. There's nothing really like it in North America. So it's very unique. In part of my background is working on ski villages, working on tropical resorts, and also community planning. I do an awful lot of community planning, and I work a lot in rural communities too. So, you know, hearing folks' concerns, I hear their concerns, and obviously we want to address them as much as possible. But at the end of the day, planning rests in a way with you folks. You have to balance the needs of the community and the needs of neighbors and the concerns of neighbors with the whole of the community and what will move the community forward. I actually read your handbook this morning, what every counselor needs to know. And I thought it was very useful. And then also it talked about area structure plans. As you know, we already have an area structure plan for this project. That was one of the first requests that was made of PAR 999. So really, at the end of the day, the ball is in your court as politicians, but also in a way as planners for the future of Hinton to balance everybody's needs and look at the vision of the project and I guess in a way weigh the risks and the rewards for the community. I was in a meeting yesterday with Bird Construction. So PAR 999 is now engaged Bird, which is the old Stuart Olson, very large. They're one of the top 4 construction companies in Canada. And they've now been engaged to do preliminary feasibility studies on the budget we have moving forward with the first phase. And it's a very innovative process that PAR 999 has chosen to go through. It's called integrated project delivery. And so what we do is we design the project with the constructors, and that way we know exactly what the project costs all the way through. So the risk is taken out on PAR 999's case. So I thought that was great. It was a great meeting with these guys. And actually the senior estimator, most of the people on the team loved Hinton. Some people had relationships with Hinton. Some people lived here. One of the project managers was involved in the first hotel you see on the left-hand side when you drive into town, that 1970s, 80s style log building. The senior estimator said, I played the Hinton golf course last summer. I absolutely loved it. And Amir, I thought very astutely, he asked him, and this was candid, it wasn't scripted, what do you think about this project and what it will do for the golf course? And he said, first of all, you know, it's going to elevate it because it brings in this resort accommodations. He likes to golf with his buddies. So he's one of these individuals that's, you know, he's probably been slightly successful in life and they like to get away. And he said, I definitely go to Hinton and stay at the Bliss or one of these golf casinos before I would go to Jasper. And he liked he called it sort of the small town vibe of Hinton versus the hype of Jasper at all as well. So I thought that was very encouraging of hearing that from an outsider. So the challenge in working in lots of small communities, I see is the challenge is when you're in a small town, you generally sort of live in a bubble and you get used to what your bubble is. And when somebody comes in with a vision, and I've worked all over the world, so I've seen a lot of different places, and Amir is the visionary behind this, not myself. I just facilitated getting his ideas onto the plan. But you get a little uncomfortable because it's stuff you haven't seen. You know, so obviously there's always some angst with new development. But one of the goals of this project, and Amir has been very straightforward with that, and I think this is why you entertained his EOI, is to elevate Hinton. It's very important, I think, for Amir's success to achieve that goal. So one of the ways it elevates Hinton is, you know, Hinton is got a hospitality sector. It's a fairly large sector in Hinton, and there's 18 hotels here. But none of them really compete with the level of a 4-star in Jasper. So what Bliss, the Bliss of Hinton is a proposal for is a much higher level hospitality experience for folks. In why is that good? Well, obviously it generates economic, it's an economic engine. It generates economic development. It brings more people into Hinton, obviously. It brings in a different tier, and there will be spill-off in the hospitality sector as well. So I think that's a very positive aspect of this project. And it also elevates Hinton because it gives Hinton, I don't want to use the word Canmore because I don't think anybody in Hinton wants to be the next Canmore, but it's such an interesting concept because it's more like the Banff Institute for the Arts. It's something that it's going to be very special, and Hinton's going to be known for this. So it doesn't mean Hinton's going to explode into this resort getaway and people are going to be buying second homes and renting Airbnbs and driving up the real estate prices and things like that. It's more of a sort of a soft feather in your cap, if you will. And obviously the sister project to the Bliss Hotel, which is a teaching hotel. And the reason I put together such a lengthy PDF for everybody to see, it's an educational process. It was for myself to learn about that typology because it's a typology I didn't know of. And it's also for you folks to get a better understanding. So in the PDF, there's precedents. And it's not like we're copying them, but it's just raising everybody awareness. It's like going to school a little bit when you read it and you go, oh, I see these different types. And the Bliss is unique because it's unique to Hinton. The architectural style we're talking about, it's very low key, it's very simple. It still reflects the Rocky Mountains and it's unique to Hinton. So what we're proposing is elevating Hinton in terms of the design as well, in a nice way, in a comfortable way. And I think design can bring happiness and joy to people. It makes the world a better place when you have good design. So one of the things you'll see in the master plan when you look at it, and when I drove through Hinton the very first time, I made an observation very quickly. Everybody likes to look at the highway. Every building, it seems, in Hinton faces the highway. So the approach in this project is very different. Yeah, the buildings all create little outdoor spaces. They all have different orientations. Some are northwest and some are southeast. And they create these intimate outdoor spaces and they're connected together. So it's an experiential design. It's a place where one can lose himself for a few hours. And why would this be advantageous even if you lived here? Well, I always see this as sort of a future. So you got to be a bit of a futurist and put yourself in the design. And that's why I went to great length to have very realistic illustrations in here so people could put themselves in the design. It's a place where one may get married, perhaps on the amphitheater, which is also is a town green. It's a place where you may celebrate anniversaries in the fine dining in the hotel. It's a place where you may get a day pass and bring your kids and swim in the resort pool in the summertime. It's certainly a different type of shopping. It's not a strip mall. One of the things the mayor asked for was an outlet mall. And I basically said, I don't do outlet malls. It's not what I do, but I do experiential retail. So the retail is kind of like an entertainment retail. It's pedestrian orientated. It has a water feature in the center, which can freeze over and be skating in the wintertime. Obviously, it's a place where there can be some food and beverage, and there could be some synergy with the golf course in terms of sports retail, synergy with Marmot Mountain in terms of maybe there's a ski shop in there, and hopefully there's arts and crafts in there that could be even generated locally and feature the culture. So I've gone to great length of talking about culture in this document as well, as you can see in the hotel design, bringing in Indigenous culture, First Nations culture, and bringing in a little bit of the culture of hospitality as well, because as we know, Hinton has a history of hospitality. In fact, the name Bliss, Bliss was the last train station. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a great name. When I heard the word Bliss, it's like, I just want to be involved in this project because they have a cool logo and they got a cool name. It's going to look great for my own promotional materials. But So it's got this hospitality aspect. Now, the school is a very interesting concept. So the hotel is a teaching hotel, and the school, it's a school for hospitality. In what hospitality means, it means working in a restaurant, it means working in a hotel, it could mean retail management as well. And what it does is it lifts people up, it gives people skill sets, particularly in a place like Hinton. It gives an opportunity for kids that may not go on to post-secondary institution. They have something simple here. And then it brings in people from outside of Hinton, which is a bit of an economic driver. So we're not talking tourists per se, because you already have 18 hotels. So what's one more hotel going to do? It's going to be a drop in the bucket, but it brings in students. So I think students are an important thing. And what makes this so interesting, it's a practical university. It's a practical institution, I should say. It's not a textbook institution. If you look at Athabasca University, I've heard that they're struggling right now because of COVID, and everybody's learning online now, and it's a small community and they're suffering because of that. What this proposal does is very different, because it's a proposal where it's practical, and these young people, they can work in the Bliss, they can work and maybe get some experience managing one of these retail outlets or destination retail experience units, and they can also be a labor force throughout Hinton as well. We all know there is a labor shortage here, right? So, and hopefully some of these people stay and they have roots and they buy houses and they raise families here as well and become ingrained in the community. So it's such a unique concept. Like, it was hard to believe when Amir started talking about it and why Hinton. But when I came here, I realized it's on the doorstep of a national park. In this summer, I was on BC Ferries and I picked up National Geographic, and the cover was the 100 most beautiful places in the world. And I went, I love to travel. It's like, wow, I got to see what's in here. And Jasper was in there. Like, you're on the doorstep of one of the most beautiful places in the world. So this is, I think, a wonderful opportunity for you. So I kind of wanted to speak at that high level. Now, I think maybe the public has questions about the mechanisms of the EOI and maybe quote some secrecy of the planning of this, but we have been very transparent. Amir's been transparent about the money he's going to invest in this for the first phase. Obviously, when you get through the first phase, it's a revenue generator, and then you can go on. Master plans were definitely not built in a day. And the one thing I always tell my clients is we need to design the master plan. So the first phase, if that's all that gets built for a while, Reed's is a full project. And the first phase will be the hotel, or at least 2/3 of the hotel right now in terms of the budgeting of this. And that's why we're working with IDP to really understand what we're getting in here in terms of the project. So that's obviously a very important thing to consider. So with no further ado, I'll just quickly go through the presentation here. So there's the contents, the list of figures, all very standard stuff. The executive summary, which I'm not going to read. Amir wrote a 4-page executive summary for me, and I distilled it down into 1 page. He repeated a few things, but he likes to do that, being a wannabe developer. And the other thing that's unique about this project is my client's not a developer, he's an end user. And that's in land development. That's not really a common thing. Mostly I work with, on these larger projects, developers who come in, they do a master plan, they might build the first building, but then they parcel things off, and they're really kind of a wholesaler of land. So this obviously is a different proposal in that way. So that's the executive summary. And then this is an overview. This is a watercolor that I commissioned. Let me see if I can get this working. Yeah, so here's Carmichael, Canadian Tire, Royal Bank's here, Canadian Tire, the Quality Inn is over here. That's the mall there. So somebody asked me today, why did you pick this site? Like, you've got the whole golf course. And the first answer, what you will see as I go through here, I didn't pick the site. This is what the town, carved off for us. And in fact, when I first looked at it, I was confused because we're taking 2 golf holes out of an 18-hole course. How does this work? And then it was explained to me, oh, well, there's a spare hole for 1, so there's 19. And rather than taking the entire road frontage, which was the original outline, I pulled it back so we would only impact 1 hole rather than 2. So, you know, that makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. And then there was this area between some of the holes that was forested. And I thought, well, maybe we can get some of that land for one of the program elements that Amir added, kind of later into the programming process, which was this idea of golf casitas. And they're important because it's a different type of experience for people. It's more of a butler service for people getting educated in hospitality. And it's possibly an investment vehicle to help PAR 99 fund the project as well. Their business, right? They have to fund this somehow, right? It's not just money falling out of the sky. So it's got to be one of the other things I said about when Bert asked us, what are the values of the project? One was to be successful, right? That's very important. So the plan has to have some sense to it as well. And I was worried when I first looked at the site that it would be too narrow, because how do you do a village when it's a strip? You end up with a strip mall. So we took great care to create a site plan that, as I said, had these interesting spaces. So you see there's a space, this is the conference center. This is the school here. This is the Bliss Hotel, which can be divided into two wings and even a third phase here. Here's the amphitheater. Here's the destination retail experience, surface parking along the highway, underground parking in the hotel, possibly a little bit there. And then this is the Focus Hotel, which would be in a later phase. So it's good in a master plan to have an idea of the later phases as well. And that was included in the boundary. So the boundary the town gave us was along here and along here. And I want to speak briefly to the golf right now, and I'll maybe hit on this a few times. One of the concerns about the Golf Society was the safety zones. One of the first things I did was lay down safety zones on my first concept on we call it chicken scratch, but it's trace paper. And I'm a landscape architect as well as an architect. I've worked on lots of golf course communities, but I was going to get peer review in this. So I talked to a colleague of mine who I worked with for 3 years in Florida, Keith Morrow, who's a fellow with the American Society of Landscape Architects and part of the Urban Land Institute. And I said, I've got this project. I need safety zones. I need to make sure I've got the right zones, because it's not something you can look up online. There really is no textbook. Although a golf course architect found some archaic little diagram from the 1970s and shared it with us, but he concurred on our distances. So that was important. So the reshaping of the boundary goes around those safety zones. Now, the Golf Course Society, and astute to them, had some anecdotal things to say about the way balls fly. And when you slice and when you hook, the balls have more of a chance of going into outside of a safety zone in one case versus the other. And so we listened to them. And at PAR 999 has engaged Ground Cube golf course architects out of Calgary. So one of the things I tasked with them is, I want you to confirm our safety zones. And they overlaid their safety zones with ours. And they're actually the same. They've moved the lines a little bit with the anecdotal discussions that went on. And I'm happy to say that there are no conflicts along here on their new safety zone. And our safety zone looked at that as well, as being a potential hazard. And there are some potential impacts along the golf cottages. And so we're going to pull that back with their safety zones in terms of that parcel boundary. And then the other logical thing is you want your buildings to face down a fairway, not up a fairway, because if you face them up the fairway, you're going to get golf balls hitting the glass. So it's better to hit the cement board on the side of the building than, if it's really an errant ball. And honestly, balls can fly from one fairway to another. So when you're a golfer, there's an inherent risk that you're going to get hit by a ball as well. That's why people yell "4", I guess. So I wanted to talk briefly about that since I've got this illustration up here. So this is the history briefly, which some of this stuff, this is the history. A lot of this I got off the town's website. Some of it I got from Amir as well. A little bit about the purchase agreement. This was, I think, a news release by the town, the golf club history here. And I think there's one image here of golf, and I've been told it's Banff. It's not Hinton. And I believe I took that. I thought I had taken that off the Hinton Golf Society's webpage, but maybe that was incorrect. So if I'm bad on that one, I take the blame. Keep moving forward here. So this is some of the imagery. When you think of Hinton and you drive through it, you think of highway and concrete and asphalt, buildings facing the roads, but that's not the Hinton that you all know. It's Jasper on your doorstep. It's the boardwalk. It's Marmot Basin. It's the retail in Jasper. I guess this is the one from Jasper that I thought was from Hinton. When I typed in Hinton Golf Course, I guess it popped up. And then obviously the Nordic skiing, which is a great thing. You've got a great winter culture here, which we've thought about in the in the design of the hospitality aspect as well, in terms of the landscaping and also in terms of the building. So when we start a project, we like to do a topographical analysis, a site analysis. We like to look at the ecology of the site, and that's all stuff that will inform us and teach us. And it's good for folks to see it too. So this is the study area that was given to us. You can see it goes up here. It impacts quite a bit of golf, right? So this is where I was talking about. I said, why don't we just, first of all, we just took it to there, but I was really pushing the boundary on that. And I said, well, why don't we take some of that land, keep the 20 acres at the 20 acres, because that was what was discussed. And there's this parcel, orphan parcel up here off of Keel Drive, which provides a great emergency access through here. So we have 2 routes in and 2 routes out. So it was actually a great opportunity to look at. Some people have asked us, like, well, why didn't you plan the golf or the project up here? You know, and when I first looked at that, I thought, you know, being on the site, it seems a little bit more flatter, and yeah, it does have some merit, but you know, there's impacts with the single family. So there's impacts with neighbors. This hole is shorter than this one. So there's a whole lot less land, but the real reason is it's just too narrow there without impacting multiple golf holes. So I think the town, in their wisdom, gave us a relatively good boundary, and we went and fine-tuned it and tweaked it as well to make sure that we were out of the play of the golf course, leaving 18 holes there in play. So this is conceptual land use. As you can see, our site is this tiny little site. In here, there's the golf course. And this is an interesting thing because, you know, it seems like a big project. If I lived in Hinton, this would seem like an enormous project. And somebody asked me that question today, and we're sitting, I think, in the restaurant at the Quality Inn. But I said, well, wouldn't the Safeway and the mall and the Walmart and the Canadian Tire and a couple of hotels that are out there and the McDonald's, wouldn't that seem like a massive project to you? Yeah, it would be a huge project. And if you propose that all at once, people might have a heart attack. Look at all the trees you're cutting down and all the pavement, and where's the sustainability? But it incrementally happened, and this project will incrementally happen. But it's very different than what's across the street. So it's a different kind of project for the town of Hinton. In fact, I joked to Amir that trip in July, the 1st July, I said, Amir, let's go. It's been a while since I've been in Jasper. I did a conference up there about 15 years ago. And I said, let's go check out the village. And when we got through with looking at the little historic town center of Jasper, I turned to Amir. I said, I think we can do better than this for sure. I think Hinton can have a nicer little core than Jasper. And hopefully the renderings speak for themselves on that. So this is regional context. And the great thing about this is there's the project site. This is all in your urban growth boundary, and a lot of it's crown land that you probably have the ability to maybe take down or invest in. And, you know, I always advise councils in a housing crisis to think about where can you get land for affordable housing as well. So it's something that I would encourage you all to think about, working with the provincial government and creating a bit of a land bank for yourselves. And one of the problems with the golf course as well is the land ownership's messy. You know, somebody very early on said, well, why isn't it on the first 9? And it's like, well, the town doesn't own the land in the first 9, so that's not going to fly, right? There's obviously bigger parcels there, but I think being on the highway has a great advantage for this project because it brings the exposure. And I've heard a few times from the town of like, yeah, it's the highway frontage is important to us for this project. Having that impact on the highway, on the way to Jasper, on the way back, and having that visibility, it's an important aspect to the project. And I think I concur with them as well. So here's, oh, sorry, I bypassed that one. Just go back. It's running a little slow. Here's this initial sort of look at the safety zones. And this is the new hole 16, which it's not very popular. It's the wedding hole. And I'll be candid with you. I tasked our landscape architect at looking at that hole and saying, well, there's this argument that it's 3 par 3s in a row. I'm going to counter that by saying it's 2 par 3s and a short 4 in a row because it's not a par 3. But we wanted to look at the feasibility of making that a decent par 4. And there are impacts. Moving that green 120 feet to the south takes out the parking lot for the school. So it definitely impacts the feasibility of the plan. And it comes with an enormous price tag, which eats into the feasibility of the overall project. I'll let Amir speak to that more, but there are 3 main points were 3 par 3s in a row, the safety zones, which is everybody's concern, and it would be want to be your concerns as well, and then the walk along 16. And I think we've all admitted, people who are intimate to the project, that we're not going to solve the walk along 16. And in fact, our golf course architect, when asked about that, he made 3 or 4 examples of resort courses that have these long distances between holes. It's not something that's never been done before. You don't like walkbacks. You've got to walk back on 17. But Amir has said all along, and when you see the renderings, it's an experience when you go past this village. So it's a little drive on a golf cart. You know, there are some diehard walkers. It's a bit of a distance for them, but you know, they're still walking the same length of the course at the end of the day. It hasn't gotten any longer. And we hope there's some synergy where maybe people can let play go by and have a beer on the patio or something and enjoy a little of the ambiance of the village. So this was the original plan that we did. So I want to show you a little bit of the evolution. Originally, we had the school as one building, and a lot of this was more blocky. So we've done some more definition. And this was September 15th. So this was presented in a public open house. So there's been no secrecy of what the plan looks like over the last year. There has been some delays in communication. And I think people have thought, well, why haven't they heard anything in a year? And, you know, I've thought a little bit of that. I'm not in charge of communications. But what I can say is, you all know, your staff has been working very hard. And Amir's had his civil engineers working very hard. He's had me working very hard. He's had a contract planner working hard, environmental consultants working very hard. So we've been jumping through the steps. Part of that was the area structure plan, which was last January, or in January. And part of that has been the transportation impact assessment. Anybody who's worked with transportation engineers at a provincial level, I'm going to be honest, like, they see things in a very linear way, and they're tasked with moving cars down highways. They're not tasked with placemaking and creating places. So that went slow. In fact, the first response back from our civil engineer was, it's a no. And I told him, no, it's not a no, it's a yes. You just have to know how to ask the question. So he went back and he asked the question, and it was aha. The area structure plan wasn't aligned. So it didn't show that as being development. So they couldn't even entertain that yet. So things have been progressing well. On the communication side, not a lot has changed, since you'll see, obviously, in the booklet, there's more definition in the design, but it's a good plan. It's a solid plan. Nobody's really, I heard one comment, it's a strip mall and a hotel. Yeah, you could call it that, but you know, it's elevating Hinton. It's a different type of hotel, and it's a destination experience. And the hotel is a teaching hotel. So it's actually very unique in Canada. So we'll go on to the next image. This was actually the very initial sketch, which I think maybe I shared with you in a council meeting where I was remote. And you can see here's the golf casitas along here, really pushed too far into the golf course. And so I figured they're never going to fly, pulled them out, moved them uphill a little bit where they're obviously out of play. And then this is all, you know, just getting more definition as we go through it. So this is just some imagery from the open house. This was one of the original sketches for the architecture. And Amir phoned me up one day and he said, it's not really what I'm envisioning. And I wasn't taken aback. I like a challenge, right? He said, I don't want it to be truly like that kind of West Coast, you know, lots of different roofs, busy and kind of resort. He wanted it more refined. And in fact, he doesn't have an enormous budget. He's got, a sizable money. It's not chump change what he's investing here, but we did want to tone it down a bit. But when you see the renderings, we elevated it as well through simplicity. So we're thinking about simplicity. And one of the things we're exploring is prefabricated. So it can come in, the hotel modules can come in and built over the winter. Also, Bird is very interested in working with local trades. They see a lot of synergy on that, possibly mill workers and plumbers and electricians. And they do say they have a good trades network, but they like to tap into the local economy as well. There is a labor shortage, so that's always an issue in terms of building this. And then the project background. So this was the program that was given to me originally. And then some acreages in terms of how that land gets divided up. So there's the common area lot, which is the surface parking. There's the hotel site, the golf cottages, conference center, amphitheater, all stuff that I think we're all familiar with now. And then this is the overall layout. So the other thing I wanted to do on this plan was be very sympathetic to the neighbors to the north. And Amir phoned me up one day and he said, I need high-rise dormitories. And I had to disappoint him as I said, it's not going to fly because it's not what we talked about in the September open house. We talked about these, they're called manor houses. I hate that name, but they're basically like an old 1920s rambling bungalow, maybe on 2 levels, not one. And you can divide them up into apartments. So it's like a rooming house, but it's purpose designed. And so that's what we're thinking for the staff accommodation, potentially some student accommodation. So it would be nothing over 2.5 stories, maybe the 3rd story is built into the roof line. And it would have that same synergy and typology with the neighbors across the street. One of the things I told him here was, we've already been telling people in the September open house not to worry about their views. And the nice thing about being down here is our neighbors are parking lots. They're bank, they're a Walmart, right? They're not the single family homes up here. And we're sympathetic to that. The views might be better up here, but there's some opportunity down below as well. And then this is where we get into, I wish the lights were a little dimmer because it's washed out, but it doesn't matter. More of the detail of the plan. So this is the next refinement. And one of the things to highlight here is this fire lane that comes down through here. And so we have this secondary access through the site, which is important. Obviously, wildfire is a real issue here with trees. And then we have the future access point here as well, because this ultimately there'll be another intersection there at some point, because you can see your urban growth boundary and the crown land down here. Eventually that will get developed. It's just a matter of time. Could be 50 years, it could be 10, I don't know, but it's a matter of time. So as I said, we've got people places, the school, and you'll see in the renderings, it's got 3 buildings that shape an outdoor room and a little plaza for the students to congregate. They get a little covered area with the fire pit. The conference center is a standalone building. It's kind of, I call it the tweener building because it has function with the hotel. The hotel can run conferences there in it, but it's also a learning center for the students. So it's got synergy for the town as well. And often conference centers are built with public money. So, it's possible this could be a triple P project down the road. Here's the hotel itself, a breezeway, so it can be phased. The pool is in an amenity area. It's well away from, a lot of the play. The amphitheater is the most buffered here from the golf play. And certainly there can be rules about, volumes and music and things like that to be sympathetic to the play of the course. And here's the retail experience village here. Each one of these plazas or spaces, green spaces, has a different orientation, different feeling, different views. So it's experiential design. I went for a walk today because I had some time. I hate using the word kill, but some time to kill in Hinton without a car. And I was at the Quality Inn. So I walked out of the Quality Inn. I walked behind another hotel or motel. I walked behind some fast food restaurants. I had to climb up and down a little median. And then finally I found a sidewalk briefly and got into the Canadian Tire. And then, I didn't even know it was a mall. Look, it's a mall on the other side of Walmart. And then when I walked back, I'm going through all this asphalt. This is a very different experience.
for people in Hinton. It's more of a European feeling than a car dominated feeling. Obviously, we've got to deal with the cars and park them, but that's our buffer along the highway. And these buildings are turned and cranked around to buffer them from the highway. So nobody's really facing the highway. Maybe there's a few, I call them loser units or rooms in there that have to, but you know, somebody's going to get the discounted price point on that. So that should be a good thing for somebody. Sorry, that was, I just want to go back to this. So part of the feasibility of a master plan is understanding the grades. There's a lot of topography on this site. You know, you think Hinton's flat, it's not flat by any means. There's lots of topography, but with that comes great opportunity. It creates interest. You know, walking up and down streets is much more interesting than being in Florida where everything's totally flat. And I know Florida, I was there for 3 years, and it's not really my cup of tea. And we've graded out the fire access path. These T's are really elevated far above the hotel, and we've made note of that. And there's a natural opportunity to put some parking under the buildings as well, because there's 2 or 3 stories of grade change as you draw a cross section through the site. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these typologies. If you're interested in it, it's in the PDF, but you know, this was for my own research as well. What I did learn is teaching hotels, they're never the same. You know, there's not very many of them in the world, but they're all totally different, from very small to very large. And Amir has a particular vision in mind for his that works with the academic component. And then I'm just not going to get into these. I'm going to breeze over these for you folks. So I always like to think a little bit about, you know, how you're positioned in getting a sense of things. And I kind of did this map for myself. I always like seeing geography and understanding topography. And there's the park gate right there. Like, you're halfway to Jasper, to the town site, but you're right on the doorstep of the park. And I think that really puts Hinton in perspective for me. And, you know, shame on us for not knowing where Hinton is. You know, like, everybody should, because it's such a beautiful place. And your esteemed mayor found Hinton. I don't know how he did, coming from Courtenay and Comox, but and then I looked at the hotel occupancy as well. And COVID, it's in here. So it's that low one. And there's definitely, since I did this, and we had the bumper year of, what was it, 2022, which was a bumper year. I think this last summer was probably very busy too. People had been pent up. They wanted to get out and experience nature and hike and maybe stay in a nice hotel in Jasper. So the occupancy, it really peaks in the summertime. But there is some in the winter as well. November into early December obviously is the lowest. Amir's got some ideas about that, maybe putting some students in the hotel rooms when they're going to class in the slow season as well. But one of the things that the conference center does, and having that conference component, it brings people from Edmonton or maybe from Calgary, or, you know, even from Vancouver, because I've been to conferences in Jasper coming from Vancouver, and that fills out those shoulder seasons. And they have spin-offs. They'll go to the restaurants, you know, they'll go to Starbucks for what it's worth. It's, you know, just keeping some kid employed, but the money's going to Seattle. But still, there are some spin-offs, which I think is important to the local economy, because the reality is Hinton is a place of hospitality. There's 18 hotels here, so it's no secret. You know, obviously the mill's important, mining's important, technology is important, but I think hospitality is something that we need to keep our eye on in terms of a benefit. And then the views. So obviously the views are up this, I guess you call it the valley, towards the mountains. And the nice thing about this site is at the edge of Hinton, and it's closest to Jasper. So it's not too much of a stretch. And then we talked briefly in our meeting yesterday about the synergy with Marmot Basin. And I haven't really got my head around this, but one of the gentlemen from Bird suggested, well, why not a shuttle from the hotel to Marmot? And he's an avid skier, and he says there's a big parking problem at Marmot. People would really like that. And given that the Bliss of Hinton has the spa component, when you come back in the fine dining in the indoor-outdoor pool, it has amenities to draw people away from Jasper and have them stay in Hinton. And again, it's this concept of elevating. You're welcome to stay at the, you know, the highway-orientated motels, and that's kind of what Hinton's known for. But I think PAR 999 has brought this wonderful opportunity to elevate the town. Oh, this is your course, yeah. So that image from Jasper, that was probably intended to be from Jasper, now that I think of it. More a regional context of imagery. And this is your beautiful course here with the Rocky Mountains in the distance. Oh, I wanted to go back. So this was the graph I researched and found. Expenditure, you know, we don't have to go over this, but it's in there. There's some interesting evidence that tourism definitely, you know, helps the local economy. A lot of people don't like tourism these days because they see it as lower paying jobs and yeah, somehow it's getting a bad rap. Certainly short-term rentals are in the news now, but I think people like to travel and they like to experience things. So I'm very pro tourism. So here we go. Like I had to put this in the report because I was so astounded that Jasper's number 16, and I don't think it's ranked. I don't think it's just the 100 most beautiful places. And it really is stunning. And that inspires some of the design, the idea of the Rocky Mountains with very robust materials, indoor plants and lots of color in craft. So that's part of the idea of the hotel. So you can see the hotel design has evolved quite a bit from the September public hearing, and it's more refined. We like to see it as being large clad, but really it's got to be fire smart. So it's going to be cementitious board probably on the outside, and then very simple roof to make it more economical. So there's more budget that can be put into what people really experience, which is the inside of the building. And this is a little bit about branding. So this is interesting because Hinton is the home of this Bliss brand too, which is pretty unique, right? Like hotels have to start somewhere. So you're a germination for this new business. And then looking at some of the competition, the Holiday Inn in Hinton, 3-star property, the number of keys. So I wanted to kind of, in my mind at least, position the idea of 70 keys with what's offered in Jasper and what's available in Hinton. And it's kind of that middle size. And it's really what fits on the site as well. And then this is a destination hotel in Predator Ridge, Sparkling Hill. I don't know if anybody's ever stayed there. I've been there a couple of times. It's got a destination spa. And it's one of these cases, if you build it, people will come. Very deep pockets, like it's got a high price tag, high per square foot, but it's done very well now. And I think it was probably more of a passion project for the owner than anything else, but it certainly elevated, I think, that community of Predator Ridge in Vernon, having that signature there. And this is a place where you would go to get married or you would celebrate a birthday or an anniversary. And we're thinking the Bliss is kind of similar in that of something that's actually very special. This is the Little Nell in Aspen. I'm very familiar with the Rocky Mountains down south of the border. I've done lots of work. I've been to Aspen quite a few times on conferences and done a little bit of work in Colorado. And the reason I shared this is it's got this courtyard feeling and it's got the same sort of scale. It's a bit more busy with all the dormers and built into the roofscape, but it's got this little amenity space. And you can see here's the pool here to give you a sense in the scale of it. And it's actually very, very well-known and popular hotel in Aspen. And then the one thing they did in that is they had a second phase, which was in town, which was an ability for people to buy these units. It's kind of like what we're doing with the golf casitas and be operated still by the hotel. So that's part of the business plan. And here's the golf cottages here. So what we're going to do on this boundary is going to cut back more like that. And rather than have a tree buffer in the middle, we're just going to single load that. We're probably going to lose a few cottages there in order to work with our golf course architects, landing zones on that, and to be a bit more conservative. And we are listening. So we can't promise the world on things, but we are trying to, you know, take cues and do the right thing. This is Carmel Valley Ranch, where they have this idea of golf casitas. Beautiful project. I'll never stay there because it's $1,000 US a night.
Yeah. And we've been running quite a while. I'm just going to.
I think we can probably conclude if you want, because I think we've been through most of this, but.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I was just going to see if council wanted to continue or not, but a lot of this has been new information to me. So we'll go to council here. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Please.
So from the original EOI that was put out that PAR 999 responded to, the town of Hinton is seeking an expression of interest EOI proposal from suitably experienced proponents who can provide demonstrable options to enhance and promote the existing 18-hole Hinton golf course. By incorporating development options that are sustainable, promote economic opportunities, and thereby raising the profile of the town of Hinton and surrounding areas as a destination that promotes the attraction of new businesses, support tourism, and provide opportunities that will attract families to Hinton and eventually to call Hinton home. That's all important. But the point that I want to focus on today, and it's a concern that was brought forward by a lot of the people that are in the room here tonight, is the part about enhancing and promoting the existing 18-hole Hinton Golf Course. How is Par 999 going to work with the Hinton Golfing Society to address the concerns that were brought forward this evening and additional concerns that may come forward moving forward to ensure that the project meets the intent of the original EOI and that it's mutually beneficial to both Par 999's development and to the Hinton Golfing Society?
I'm gonna let Amir answer that if he can, because it's a question for the owner versus the planner.
Oh. Thank you. Through the mayor. Councilor Sackey. This is the essence of the same question. The development here is located in such a fashion that addresses the overall experience for the golfer. The casitas that where we are positioning are part of that whole plan in general. The submission to this EOI in our reply and the proposal, it also states that the development will address the economic needs for the golfers in a golf course. And packaging golf course together with this facility is basically the cornerstone for our mutual existence. That is one. Now, we have gone into the design schematics 3 times, changing the designs or adapting to the new ideas all along. Some of those you have seen. And 1 out of the 3 concerns around the safety zones have been addressed. And we will continue to evolve as we go into this third or fourth design detail. That will have a lot more information available for the council and the community as what we're going to do with certain other impacts that may come in from the safety perspective. We also scaled back from 1 hole. Initially, there were 2 holes that were being used by the development to 1 hole, and 18-hole golf course is basically a global standard. So we are of the opinion. Sure. So the 18-hole golf course is what is required. And therefore, it will be an 18-hole golf course. Now, certain improvements will take place naturally along the way. And we have to discuss that where these improvements will end and where these improvements will start. As the design becomes more firm, and we are in a position to say this is exactly how this addresses the concerns of the safety, the improvement of 1 of the holes, also the walk concern, then these 3 would be addressed one after the other. So what you saw just now is an evolution of 3-stage design process, and it's continuing now. It's getting into more detail as we speak. You will see some new information coming through, but our focus is also bringing in the golfing, the architect who's expert in golf from Ground Cube is also the same to expeditedly basically assign an expert to answer these 3 questions with us. Together, that will create the package that will be presented. And I think pretty much very clear in my mind that having the safety zones addressed first priority, and of course, we own the basically burden of security, and the insurance is on us because we are building. not the golf course buildings. If something is hit, we'll have some sort of remedies in place to protect golfing society from any kind of issues or legal issues or whatever. So we'll build those mechanisms into the agreement. Other than that, I would like to draw two more things here. And I think I have addressed that with our golfing society's joint meeting sometime very recently, that the hospitality institution is not a hotel management school. It has very significant presence in the world of hospitality. That could also mean that if we have the right golfing partner to host our students, we could run a revenue sharing or some sort of a tuition fee sharing program in which we train students for golf club management. And that is a science itself. That could be a 1-year-long program. It will have maybe 100 students, maybe 50 students. Whatever the revenues come in will, on an ongoing basis, facilitate or offset the expenses that the golfing society incurs. And that takes away the burden from the taxpayers. As the entire spectrum is around education, there is a massive opportunity for the golfing society and the golf club itself to become partner and benefit from this, both economically and revenue generation wise. And this could be under basically a firm agreement, a binding agreement from both sides. And we provide the space, we provide the marketing opportunity, we enroll the students, they come on board as a facilitator for the training grounds, and they get the free labor. That's how we think a revolution or evolution and revolution would happen in this space here. So in your P&L for the golf society, significant costs go into the human capital. And if you start to engineer that, it eases up the taxpayers, number one, plus it elevates the standard of golf to the next level. From the design point of view, at the stage that we are in, I'll repeat myself, the zoning for safety zones and the walk is our priority for now. And then we'll see that how far can we go for the improvement of the existing wedding hole, I think that is. And we'll see that if we can do something about it at that time.
I can follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
So I think that the opinions that have been expressed here and last meeting and to me in person and by email, our community is pretty vocal that it's important to them that the playability and that the experience of golfing at the Hinton Golf Course is vitally important. It's critically important. So if this project continues to move forward, a couple people even spoke to it tonight, there needs to be a way, there needs to be a solution found that it can be mutually beneficial and that the proposed development isn't damaging to the current golf experience. So I look forward to hearing some more about how Par 999 is going to engage with the community and continue to work with the community to make sure those concerns are addressed, and we'll see how this moves forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have lots of questions. I'll start with this one. Amir, you had talked about how it was important for the Hinton Golf Course, the Hinton Golf Club, pardon me, to feel like a partner in this process. So I'm going to speak really plainly. And honestly, it's because I grew up here. And when I look around the room, it's people I grew up with or people who are way older than me and I respect a lot. So after we came out of our December 5th meeting, I looked at the back and I saw some unhappy people who were connected with the golf club. That sends up red flags for me. So again, very clearly, and gentlemen, I hope I'm not betraying trust. This is just how I work. So I called them and I said, hey, you looked unhappy. Tell me about your experience working with Par 999 right now. And it was not good. And to that end, coming out of that conversation, I said, okay, guys, one of the important things about municipal governance is that all councillors receive the same information. And so they were kind enough to work with their committee, their board, and their manager to pen a letter. And this is what we got. And I'll sum it up very succinctly. They don't feel like they're a partner currently. Now, the interesting part is that the opening paragraph from the manager says, I was generally enthusiastic about contributing to the endeavor. And I think Mr. Nelson summed it up very well at the beginning of the meeting. I think there's potentials. But the problem is that they don't feel that their concerns have been heard in a lot of different respects. And I asked them specifically, I said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, we saw these plans about 10 or 12 months ago. We expressed to the town, we expressed to Part 999 what our high level concerns were with playability, with safety, et cetera, et cetera. I said, great. And they said, and then we were rushed into a meeting about a week and a half ago, before this meeting was supposed to take place on the December the 5th, I think it was. Yep, the 5th. And they said, essentially, we feel like the same plans were shoved in our face and none of our concerns were taken into consideration. So again, for me, as a counselor, listening to the people that I live with, that's a huge concern. If this, we have to consider the test for transparency and openness with this particular gem is important because this is not just a piece of commercial real estate. This is a municipally owned golf course that people feel an attachment to. So honestly, it is not council's job to be sold on a given project. When we come into any public hearing for rezoning or for development works, we're actually required by law to maintain a neutral attitude. That means I walk in there neutrally and I hear from citizens who say they're affected. I hear from citizens who say they're in support, and I hear from citizens who say that they're against. And in this instance right now, I have a lot of people who are the number one stakeholders with the golf course saying, well, I'm not very happy with this. So it's a huge, huge concern with me. So I guess to what degree is Par 999 willing to sit down with the golf course so that they can come back to council and say, as your bosses, as taxpayers, we feel that we've been heard?
The mayor. Thank you, Councilor Megan. To what degree, and thank you actually for explaining it in simple language, now I understand a little bit better. I think I have said this in my joint working session with the society. And in that session, I had told them, and I heard what their concerns were. And I told them, and I've offered to them, to both the president and the vice president of the society, that let's form a working group. And the purpose of the working group is to determine which direction the golf course would be 5 years from now. This institution that we are building, if it is impacting the golf experience, then we need to dissect that, whatever we don't need, and then reconstruct for a better experience. That's for service design. And the gentleman there, right there, I think, Walter, is a subject matter expert. He could talk on this almost all day. I'm not complaining, but I'm just voicing as I feel that I'm equally Hintonite as I own a small piece of land and I'm building my home and I'm moving my family here, that the voice has to be mutual. Unless we align our voices, we cannot hear each other. We got to understand what is the bigger purpose, what's the objectivity of this entire project. It is beyond, and I must use these words with due apology, it's beyond golf, it's beyond today. We have, at this today, we have the provision to sit together and build a cohesive roadmap. And we are 100% in agreement to do so. But through that process, if I'm asked to put up $2.4 or $2.5 million into the 2 new holes, then I have to think twice or thrice because, like I said, I'm not a conventional developer. I'm an end user. I have no other means to flip the land, to dissect it and sell it, and then do something, and then do something else and walk away from Hinton. That's not how people live in my world. The academics is my foreground. That's my forte. And if the society wants to come up and say, let's work together this is where we want to come up to this far and you come up to this far, let's meet here. I'm 100% in agreement because I'm going to, like you, I'm going to live with the same folks. I'm going to see them in Tim Hortons or say, or shake hands or exchange whatever. Once they would be in our facility, when the ribbon cutting happens, who else would come except them? They are going to be the VIP sitting there, celebrating the success of a golf course. This project is meaningless without the golf course, because this is where it exists. Not because it's the land is the important piece, but because the hospitality service design incorporates golfing as an important element of hospitality. That's why it is there. So I leave it to the president and the vice president and to the committee, to the board. And I'm 100% in agreement, sitting down, and I would certainly would love to have councillors being present in that, so we can have maybe a three-party joint working group and facilitate that to come to a point which basically is a win-win-win, triple win, not double win. And at the end, I take it as not our win per se. It's a win for today, but that's not what I'm here for. I was better off in BC if I was looking at today. The same project would have done very well in BC. I think that a town like Hinton is very unique. He has spoken about an hour on that. I'm looking at the 21 years old and 22 years old and the kids who have been dropped out of the school. I'm here for them. And that's my total passion. I mean, that's all it is. I want to train people to learn hospitality and get back in the industry. Some of them might end up in the golf course. Some of them might end up in the local hotel. But this is where I think that my focus should be. But having the partners like golf course with me and the town of Hinton with me, I think we can accomplish that. But there has to be a roadmap jointly carved. If I'm walking on the side and the society is walking on the other side of the road, we would never meet. We are walking the same pace. We both want the best thing for the golf course. But our definition of best, until that collides, until that coexists on the same page, we would not achieve anything. So I had made that offer before, and I'm openly in the public making the same offer again. That a working group formation and a round table, and we meet regularly, we update each other, and we work together to form that relationship. That's almost like a package together. And eventually we would be marketing golf course. It's our job. And we are good at that. We would take this golf course to the next level through marketing, but only to be reached to that point if we have an understanding in the first place. So I'll leave it to your good judgment to decide as how this is going to function. Neither, like I said, neither I'm a politician nor I'm a developer. I'm an educationist, and that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Just I wanted to expand on that briefly. So, since our meeting on the 5th, things have happened on the golf course because Emir is engaged Round Cube to do these studies. So like Friday, we were getting illustrations and grading plans and information and cost estimates from them. So it's not like the work hasn't been done in the background, but it's not like as soon as we get an email from a golf course architect, we're putting it out for everybody to see. So Emir has been trying to analyze the situation. He certainly heard people loud and clear. And to be fair to Emir, the boundary was come up with, at least before I got on the project, of we're taking 16 out of play. And Emir said, well, can we take all the golf out of play? And I said, no, we can't, because there's no site after that. So as I said at the beginning of my presentation, for you as politicians and actually as planners, because ultimately you have the final say, your 7 votes, you have to balance between all of your constituents, the future potential of Hinton, the risk management of the project as well, and come up to your own conclusions as well. So I think it's what Emir suggested is great, having a working committee. But the reality is I don't know if we'll ever meet where there's any one side's going to feel like they've won. And, sometimes the best negotiations are when both people feel like they've lost. There's not a winner and a loser. I've said this before, it's not possible to have a win-win on this. Because we would have to take 16 out of play. Plus, the additional land is Crown land right now, or it's Qualico land. The golf course is messy, and we've been dealing with what was given to us in terms of a land boundary and trying to adjust it as best as possible along the way and come up with this balance. So it's a bit of a tightrope we're on right now of finding the right balance between Amir's vision and the economic spinoff and bringing in this hospitality educational component. And then for people who really love the golf course to have that same experience or maybe almost the same experience. We can't guarantee it's going to be the same. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess along this line of questioning, so what I'm hearing is you've, I believe, contracted a golf design expert to take a look at it. And the idea is this expert consultation is look again at the safety and the walk to 16. So I guess along the same lines of the questioning, because that's an essential part, I think that we need to know, the community needs to know before our January 16th meeting. So is the plan to sit down and invite the Golf Society to have that discussion with yourself, the golf design expert, to get a feel for what their ideas are and have that consultation, that back and forth? And I guess my other tail question to it is there is the future of the open house. And I think there was a January 5th date in the last one, but I wasn't quite sure about that. But I guess my question in the community is curious to know, is that going to occur before that sit down is done, before an open house meeting, so that we're not seeing this at the open house and it's not exactly aligned? So is that the plan?
The mayor. Thank you, Councillor Haas. The plan should, just in logical order, it's a working committee. And it should meet more robustly, more kind of like in a predefined manner. Should be milestone meetings taking place almost on once a week at least. Could be Zoom, could be, and why I said once a week at this stage is because the architect that's working is design progress. So James can be tasked with, as he has other commitments too, as what improvements are we suggesting through that. So it could be happening in real time. Then comes the open house. And by the time the open house happens, basically how I see it, the society is not sitting on the other side of the table by then. It's the working group. Because of the working group, there is some synergy, and therefore there is some understanding. And therefore, the open house is for the community's general information as where the project sits today. And I think that is far more greater value to the community, where we, together with the society, walk in and we present that this is where we are at. And so the community is aware of this. And finally, the reading or the January 16th event, and that by then we will have almost worked out all the communication tools that got delayed by 5 days. 2 of those got delayed. One is the postcard was delayed, and the website, the landing page got delayed. But moving forward, taking out the Christmas season, I think if we get onto our working committee starting the first week of January, and then the open house few days later from that point, by then, by the 16th, we should have a very, very strong case build up on where we are at. And if there are any further more questions by the community people who don't golf, we can then incorporate those as well, just through the open house.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to build on the open house. For myself, my process was I thought I'd missed the ball this week. I emailed our CAO and I said, geez, what's the date of the open house? Because 2 weeks ago, we came into council. I know I spoke to this, other councilors spoke to this, is that, and again, the temperature of the room at the time and what we've been hearing from the public is that the public need a chance to interface with you to express their concerns about the project. Not, and again, you're free to conduct your business however you like. You're the proponent. My opinion from what I've heard from our fellow citizens is that they want a chance. They're desperate for a chance to sit down and express to you what they see, how they feel, so that you can potentially choose to incorporate that or not into your project. And then ultimately, if the world works out perfectly, people are generally happy. We come to a public hearing, which, as I said on the 5th, should not be an exciting thing. It should be something where people get to come, speak for, against, or if they're impacted by it, and then council has to make a decision potentially on rezoning. However, since we met on the 5th, where you had indicated that that Sunday the landing page would be out, but it wasn't, that endangers trust. When you say that, well, you guys are going to see a card in the mail, that's something else I've heard than last week. I haven't seen this card in my mailbox. Ryan, where is it? Ryan, when's the public open house that you spoke to online and in public? Great question. Let me ask the CAO. I must have missed it. No, I didn't miss it. It wasn't set yet. So for a lot of the people in the community, that endangers the trust that a developer, I would hope, is trying to build with the community. So again, it's unsolicited, but I offer you this. The public open house for you should be a chance to build trust, hear the concerns, and potentially modify the project. Because again, I don't think it's outside anyone's reach to see a successful project move forward. And I think you're right. The one thing I 100% agree with you on is that there is a chance for a win, win, win. But people have to feel like their concerns have been heard clearly, that it's been incorporated to the design, and that whatever the end result is something that everybody can be proud of. And again, that's just my opinion. You can take it or you can leave it. Thank you.
Can I just add to that? Thank you. Councilor Magoon, through the mayor, since last I announced my direct number and my email address, I've been contacted 16 times, right? And I have taken all the calls. None of the calls got into my voicemail. I attended all the calls because I recognized the Alberta number, so I pick up that. I replied to all the emails, and plus I replied with the follow-up question that if you have any idea, we could do a Zoom call no matter where I am, and we could discuss things on one-on-one. I hate to use the word developer, that's not who I am, but let's say for the sake of argument, no developer does that. And it's open reason why they don't do it. Because there are vested interests of people, that people sometimes have the ideas that are not practical, and if you don't accept the ideas, then they get offended and things go out of the blue. So here, the kind of questions that I'm receiving are very knowledgeable questions, extremely knowledgeable questions. And I'm so glad that the community has taken the step forward in bringing those questions, in which they have asked the necessity of having a hotel together with an academic institution at the golf lands. Now, these three things are separate. But if you combine these things together, the answer is experiential tourism. People, like what he's mentioned, that people come in as a village, it's a European village and all. So people have asked, when is the construction going to start? I said, look, I don't have a definitive date. So I replied accordingly. As we just finished our meeting with Bird and the group 2, which is IPD expert, we are hoping it will start in July, We have missed a lot of time as we speak, and most of the time has gone in because of the Alberta transportation. So I've answered that as well. A lot of people ask this, that how it's going to be affecting general economy. And I replied back to that. Some questions did show up from a golf experience point of view. And I did say that this is something that I have requested the the board of the society for a joint working committee. And I think it will be best if they convey to you whatever has been discussed and decided. Because I didn't want to mislead anyone into a separate direction. So I redirected that question and parked it on the side. It still sits with me. And I think today I received another 2 or 3 emails that I haven't responded yet. So if you take in total about 20, in total emails and 20, about 6 phone calls and 20 emails, what I have replied. Now, we're going to be extremely fast from this point on. We know that there's a Christmas break coming in, but I'm pretty sure that the landing page would be up and running very, very fast. We had a bit of technical glitch in our CHSR's website, and I did not want to take this and start a new domain. So that was just a technical matter. We held back on our card because we wanted to include any other information as you see the card has a QR code, and the purpose of that QR code is to bring people onto the landing page. So until the landing page is ready, the card is meaningless. So Canada Post was asked at the last minute not to send out the card until we are ready with the landing page. That was a delay, and my apologies on the delay. It should be up and running in no time, and card you will be seeing soon after the New Year's. That's where I see it, because by then the website is up and running, and we will take it forward from there. We will provide the administration with the website link as well. So in case if any constituents or any citizens would want to have first-hand knowledge before they receive any further information, they can easily find it on our landing page.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Taylor.
You comment on the format of the open house? I know that we had indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, that we had wanted administration to be there so that people could sort of get all the questions answered at once. But yeah, and it sounds like you're going to have an open house in early January. That's what I get out of what you said. That's good. People are probably interested in what the format's going to be.
Sure. To the mayor, Councilor Taylor, the original idea of the open house was to host it in our students' lounge in 247 Pembina building. We have this beautiful design under construction, open student lounge that can have up to 60 to 70 people. As it's on the second floor. A lot of people are familiar with that building because the dentist is right across from the lounge. So we were hoping to do that, but now I think that got delayed. So we'll be locating an alternate, perhaps one of the like Hinton Center or some other facility that we can host. Some people who have attended our open house back in 2022, familiar that we have a reception desk. Then it's basically walk-in. It will be this time. I heard that some citizens would like to have in 2 different time zones, so everybody can attend, and we will respect that. We will have not 1 but 2 days. So people who can attend one day, they can come to the next day, like this. So it will be a walk-in, and with tea and coffee and all that. But then we will have the entire design plan available for them to comment on, to walk around, ask questions. The designers and the engineers would be on site available. Then we will have a small seminar section where people can be seated and they can have discussions around and ask questions as well. So it's more of a Q&A open house session in which people would come at liberty, but then we'll have to confine the Q&A for specific questions in certain time frame, maybe 2 hours towards the end, where people come if they have any specific questions. If they have general questions about how and what, they can always feel that ask that question, and the person who's responsible can attempt to answer.
No, I think people are interested in that format, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand and appreciate your comments about that your level of engagement isn't what a normal developer would probably undertake. That's understood. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you've actually engaged to the level that you have. But I think it's important to remember that this isn't a regular development. This isn't a regular development where a developer comes in, makes a proposal to a municipality to buy a piece of property, and then they submit development permit applications to build a housing development there. And then the public open house process is pretty much confined to the neighbors that are around it who might be affected. This is different. This is a golf course that it's been communicated. This was built by the people of Hinton, 62 years. It's well loved and well used. Your development is amid that golf course. So it's important for the citizens to have a clear understanding of how they're going to be affected, how the golf course is going to be affected. And for me as a counselor, it's important for me to have a clear understanding of that as well. For me, it's important that the original and the intent of the original EOI, which was to promote and enhance golf in Hinton, is upheld. So for me, that's important, and I need to have a clear understanding of how that's going to happen as the project moves forwards for me to be able to continue to support it. So I just wanted to make sure that that was understood. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Please.
Okay, the question's unrelated, but it's I understand that you've done the research on the golf safety zones and that your consultant has indicated that they're compliant. That said, I don't have an understanding of how liability works. So if there's structures there and there is a strike on a structure or a person and there's property damage or personal injury, who's liable? Is the golfer liable? Is the property owner liable? Is the Hinton Golfing Society liable? I need a better understanding of that, if you can answer that.
You know, I'll attempt. I'm not a insurance adjuster or an insurance broker, nor am I a lawyer. But the first thing that comes to mind is your insurance is going to cover that. That's why you carry liability, commercial liability insurance. And you know, I'd advise anybody in business to carry it. I guess the second point I can think of is it is actually a residential development golf course. Like the homes haven't been built yet, but they're there. So this is a question going forward, not only for PAR 999, but it's for all of the other land that's slated for residential development that it's not built today, but ultimately it's going to get built, right? Following the safety zones is best management practices. And if there was a lawsuit because an insurance wanted to reclaim the damages they pay out, then that's where, you know, certain like engineers, architects, whatever, would probably get named in that lawsuit. And then their insurance companies would come in to their defense, right? And you'd have to show evidence that you've shown best management practices, and the kind of things I've talked about today. Peer review, you know, a golf course safety peer review on it and then having a golf course architect ultimately draw those safety lines. And then when you get, as Amir alluded to, into the detailed design, things that I've suggested, turning the buildings away. So you show that you've had the best intent. At the end of the day, it's like when you cross the street, you may get hit by a car or two, right? Like intersections are not always safe, even though we think they are. So it's a great question. And that's the best I can answer it, is not as an expert, but, you know, basically from some common knowledge of being in the industry. Hopefully that helps you. The question did come up with the Golf Society on the 5th as well. You know, and we've had some chance to sort of ponder that. And it's an important thing. And perhaps that's in the development agreement. I don't know how those kind of things work, but, you know, I think that's the reason we all carry insurance, first of all. So thanks.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up, if I may. Sorry, you said they and we a couple times when you're referring to commercial general liability. When you say they and we, are you talking about they being the Hinton Golfing Society's commercial general liability? Or are you talking about PAR 999's commercial general liability?
Well, obviously the Golf Society has commercial liability, right? If there's an accident on the golf course today, their liability insurance is gonna take care of that. If there's two parties that have liability insurance, I guess the two insurance folks are going to go at it. I'm not suggesting that the Hinton Golf Society should get rid of their liability insurance because PAR 99 will have their own commercial liability insurance. Again, it's a very good question, and I'm not an insurance expert. I'm just looking at it. I want to protect myself. So, you know, I don't want to show buildings in a landing zone and then get sued after the fact. Obviously, that's common sense. So if there was a lawsuit, I would be probably in Discovery saying the same things now as in Discovery as I am saying now. So hopefully that clarifies it a little bit.
I've taken enough time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amir, I have a question about accreditation again. I came out of our last meeting, and was talking to a citizen. I thought I had a good answer, but then it got hazy, which tells me I need to come back and clarify a few things. Now, I tried following up with an email to our MLA, but I'm still waiting on a response. So just if I'm going to try and paraphrase what I thought the answer was from our last meeting, but if you can clarify for me.
Sure.
So at the last meeting, I thought I had heard you say that currently the educational side of the facility has been identified as a post-secondary institution by the province of Alberta. I wanted to start there. Is that what I heard correctly or incorrectly?
Please. Councilor Magoon, the accreditation is always the program. The institution is an entity. The program got accredited, and through that channel, the institution is accredited when it completes. There are 6 or 8 stages in Alberta. And the last stage is the approval for the surety bond. That means that we have complied as an institution. And first of all, they've approved the program. Once the program is approved, now they are approving the entity, which means that surety bond needs to be fulfilled. And surety bond is like pay the business license fees and get the business license. You have complied, your building permit is ready, everything is done. Your planner is sending you an email saying that pay $168 and come and collect your business license. So we are at that stage. So the surety bond takes about 6 weeks to complete. So we have just established, like I mentioned last time, we have just established the CHSR, is Center for Hospitality Studies and Research. It's a separate entity. So it has established its bank accounts here locally. That's where the student fees and everything else will be collected at the RBC. That's what we're negotiating today. Within next 2 weeks, the paperwork should be done. Surety bond is complete, and the draft is ready. We will be submitting to the ministry, I think by between 10th and 12th of January. And they will take about 2 weeks to revert back and then conduct an orientation of the how to operate institution. That is the customary, basically a prerequisite before they say, okay, you are qualified. So they have to take the resident and the educational council into an orientation of how to operate an accredited institution in Alberta. That's done directly between the ministry and the governing body, or the president or the dean of the institution. That's the last stage. That's after the surety bond is complete. A bank takes roughly about 3 weeks to 4 weeks to complete the surety bond, and that's where the banks, as soon as the account is established, the bank will furnish that.
If I can follow then, Mr. Mayor. So forgive me, because I'm going to try and paraphrase so that I can be absolutely clear on this. So in short, the curriculum gets developed first. The program gets developed first. That's done. Then once the program is complete, then you apply as an institution with the government to wrap everything up.
No, not really. Allow me to
Please.
take you through this entire process. Since moratorium, we went through the moratorium, and we are only 2 institutions, I was told, in Alberta that gotten through the moratorium. We were one. The first stage is the purpose. So they want to know, when we apply, they want to know why you want to teach this program. What is the reason, and what's the need in the market? So there is an industry feedback session that takes quite a long time to get the support letters from within certain jurisdictions. We completed that and submitted those. They looked at our industry need analysis, gap analysis, and also they looked at the program outlines. Then they require a SME report, a subject matter expert report, on that academic portion of that program. And these SMEs are certified SMEs by the ministry. So we have to engage them. So we engaged them at that time. This is earlier this year. And we got satisfactory reports by 2 different SMEs. We submitted those reports. The program moved to the next stage. There was an internal review between the management and the leadership that is responsible for accreditation. And that took about 2.5 months to complete. There were several question and answers back and forth. There were certain improvements that they had required. We completed all that. Then the last stage was the program approval grant, means that program has been approved. Now the stage is accreditation of our institution and the issuance of accreditation number. That will be the basis for the final stage that I'll explain towards the end of this introduction. Surety bond is not really an accreditation piece. Surety bond is pay the fees and get the license. You've already completed all the design work. Your building inspector has gone through, your health inspector has gone through. So this is the last stage where it's between basically administrative task by the administration and the college itself. We are at that stage. Now, as soon as the accreditation is fully complete, means once we have the accreditation certificate, then we are moving into more intense, not an intense, I would say, more of a becoming a DLI institution. A DLI stands for Designated Learning Institute. A designated learning institute is the one that is approved by the student aid, basically. It's not Ministry of Advanced Education. Student aid allows the institution to receive students so that students can get the grants and the government loans to study in that accredited institution. Without a DLI, the institution cannot receive the students who are studying on public funding. So that is the final stage. Some institutions opt for that, some institutions don't. But we have already started that process simultaneously. And if I take that email out of my pocket through my cell phone, and if I read it, and you will be able to firsthand listen to this, or I'll be happy to forward you that email. There's nothing confidential. The kind of praise that given to our application and the business case, and their promise that it takes about a year to finish the DLI, but because of the quality of the application and the accreditation, the ministry itself has offered us to facilitate an earlier DLI certification. That's where we are at.
So, and if I may, just to wrap up, that's one of those questions. Again, it's just a recommendation, what I've been hearing from the public. That's one of those questions that I think the public has, is they're interested to know more about that process and where you're at, sort of how that plays into the bigger scope of the project. So
absolutely. And
happy to share that.
I'm very pleased to share that information and also take them through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Taylor.
I've often been criticized for my financial focus on things, and so be it. But one of the things I've said before at the last meeting was that this project would provide a direct tax revenue to the town in the $300,000 to $500,000 range, and that was based on a $30 million project. These documents indicate that it's potentially over time going to be a $150 million project. And that allows us to help cover some of the existing financial liabilities that we do have with the golf course, and to provide a a fund in the future, however we do it, maybe a capital enhancement fund for the golf course to cover off some of those holes where there's lots of bumps or to do work in the future. As part of the long-term financial viability for the golf course, because to date, there doesn't seem to be a long-term plan other than just come to the taxpayer. So is that estimate of $300,000 to $500,000? And I just sort of did my own estimate on $30 million. It's just extremely conservative, but that's the kind of range of return to the town we're looking at, or much greater over $150 million project.
And just a preliminary assessment that we conducted, I think it's going to be much greater than that. We identified two different economic lines, if I may use this word. One is the taxation, which is static, which is basically based on how you assess the entire project. The other one is even more attractive, and that is the lifeline for us, so as for the golf course. And that is the Golf Management Diploma Program. And the revenue split from that is a direct split, direct cash basically going into the golf course. We have to agree to that to certain, as soon as we can, as we're going through the accreditation. Our next take is to put that into place as well. So to your question, I think it will sit somewhere around close to 100 million at one point. And the reason why I'm saying it, because the assessment, if we go through a business valuation, it will sit on that number. Real estate evaluation is a different thing. And a certified business valuation is a different. So certified business valuation is the direct output of a project of this magnitude, that is in which there is land is retained by the entity. It's not for sale. It's basically the business itself is sustained, the economy is sustained, and it's year round. So different parameters that have been judged and measured against this number.
Yeah, no, yeah, good. I wasn't mixing this up with your revenue, sharing proposal, which is good, which is the first I've heard of it today. So, no, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Anything further from council? Seeing nothing, we'll thank our delegates, and council will now take a. You got one more. Okay, Councillor Taylor. In we go.
I know people are probably interested in this. Maybe it's an administration question because I've heard it a couple of times. We've had a tax incentive program going on in this town. This is probably not your question, for a number of years. It started before I was on this council. How would this tax incentive program work for this particular project? Because this is a multi-year project, would it be by phase? Would it be by dollar amount? Would it be by year? Can you offer some insight to that?
CEO Panasic, do you have anything to add for that at this time?
Through the mayor and members of council. So it would be the current non-residential tax incentive bylaw that's available to all businesses. And that would be triggered by a 25% increase in the assessable dollar amount. So typically new builds or major expansions are subject to that bylaw. So that's essentially what it would be. It would be 100% of only new investment for the first 2 years, 75, 50, 25. So it'd be a 5-year tax exemption.
Thank you, CEO Panasic.
And there are a number of businesses already that are using that program.
Through the mayor, yes, I don't have the exact number of existing businesses on the program, but we do have that's been a bylaw that's been outstanding for the last few years. So, but I don't know the exact number of businesses on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chambers.
Through the mayor, this has been a lot, I think, for both the mayor and I to process in a very short period of time of being on council, but I did want to thank you for the detail that was put into the package. It's helpful as I try to navigate all of the discussions and things that I wasn't a part of previously to this, but I will just really echo my colleagues that what everyone really just wants is that communication. If the landing page isn't going to be up, let us know the landing page isn't going to be up, those type of things. I think that's really what's key. But I think in general, I'd like to, a lot of the questions I had and concerns I had have been brought up by the other counselors in a very good fashion. But I think that's just the key point is, you know, as much information as we can have, we can start to make some better decisions, and then we're not individually filling in the gaps, because I think that that's been an issue. In the absence of appropriate information, then we all start jumping to conclusions. So thank you for what was put into that package. It helped me tremendously, along with the conversation today, and looking forward to continuing to get more information in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. And council, anything further on this item? Seeing nothing, we will let the delegates go and we will call a 10-minute recess. We will reconvene at 6:40. I gotta pee.
That's why I put that. I hope you planned that.
Oh yeah, we're on the same page there.
Good.
Although it's a race now
No,
with Joanne up front.
Yeah.
The beautification project is probably the best thing on this agenda. Oh, yeah, right? I do not like the sapling idea. Okay. And with that, we'll bring this regular council meeting for December 19th, 2023 back to order. We are on action items. Item 6.1, Beautification Highway 16, 2023 Capital Project. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. I will pass that to Ms. Juke.
Thank you. And through the chair to the rest of council. By way of this request for decision, administration is returning a 2023 capital project with additional information as directed before commencing the project. This was a council-generated project to beautify the North Boulevard of Highway 16 for about 1 kilometer in length from about the bottom of the hill along past the CN station to just before L&W Restaurant. Note should be made that this land is primarily belonging to CN, and administration has not yet formally approached CN about a project taking place there. So that has not been done yet. So we looked at the budget allocation that was given to the project, which was $53,000. And we confirmed that about 120 juvenile trees could be planted in that space, about 1 per 8 meters or 25 feet. The CPP proposes 1 every 10 meters with a little staggering to increase the screening effect of the plants. They could be planted and nursed through their first year. Benefits are reasonable costing within the approved budget, but a risk point with this scope is that the boulevard is subject to harsh conditions such as salt and snow windrowing that has already caused trees there to fail. And as well, effective screening from juvenile trees would likely take about 5 years to really realize. So administration also looked at a potential for planting mature trees within budget or with additional funds. Benefits of that alternate scope are more immediate screening and a greater chance of survival for what is planted. But phasing may have to be considered due to the higher cost per tree, both for supply and install. Administration can also propose a second alternative, which occurred to us when we were looking at this. And this is interpretive style signage with decorative black metal silhouettes panels in perhaps multiple spans along that space. And that too could be phased. Benefits are immediate and attractive with less care and risk for that installation. So at this point, administration is recommending council refer the project to a future committee of the whole meeting for at which point it will be returned with firm costing information on the 2 alternatives. And that would be for further discussion. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Juke. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council refers the Beautification Highway 16, 2023 capital project to a future committee of the whole meeting for further discussion of planting and other screening options. And I honestly don't see too much to speak to, so I'll just happily drop it a queue.
Okay, council, the motion on the floor is that council refers the Beautification Highway 16, 2023 capital project to a future committee of the whole meeting for further discussion of planting and other screening options. Council, any discussion? Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To be honest with you, until I saw the report, I was actually going to consider canceling it due to the fact that I'm not sure if trees are going to if that are going to work in that area, because we've looked at that before and it just isn't conducive to growing. However, bringing the interpretive sign screens to the table, that kind of turned me around a bit. I'd be interested to look at, and see what the costing might be, to those sign screens. So I'm going to support this motion as is right now and see what comes to the committee of the whole in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. I had a question about, so if this motion is approved, and this comes to a future committee of the whole, how much can this be delayed and still be able to see this achieved in the growing season of 2024, I guess it would be. And then my other question, can I lump them together or should I follow up?
Lump it together.
So the other question then, is if there's this many trees there, that likely creates a problem for mowing. Is the intent to be to mow around these or to engage in a bit of a wilding project and let the trees and areas surrounding the trees go wild?
Ms. Juke?
Thank you. And through the chair to the rest of council. So in answer to your first question, when could this be finished? I think ideally we'd want to see some planting as early as possible in May. And we'd also provide each of the plantings with a bag of water, which you may have seen those in the municipalities where the watering is constant drip from provided bags. And that's usually recommended in the first year. So we would do that for all of the summer. And in response to your second question, so that's if the scope stays the same. If the scope is altered to a different, we'd have to look at the equipment that's required for larger trees, the bigger spade, and the availability of that. We don't know that at this point. And then as far as interpretive signage, the other unknown there really is a supply of rough saw timber to affordably supply the timber required for those in keeping with our sign standards manual, which, as you know, is kind of like a larger post. So we're looking at that right now for the Green Square sign, so we'll double up on that. So I think that we could complete the project before the end of, let's say, midsummer, if all goes well with supply. And then with mowing, my recommendation would be to not mow too closely to the trees, simply because keeping the grass short in that area makes it harder for the trees to survive. And it would be simple enough to mow simply between the highway and the planting row, and then let underneath the trees grow up a little bit, just controlling weeds.
So if I could speak to it quickly then,
Please.
I'm okay with the motion that's on the floor and I'll support it. I just want to make sure that decisions made and directions given to administration soon enough that we can get something done there to accommodate the 2024 growing season. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Chambers?
Through the mayor, I like the ideas in general, but I think would be interesting to see too, is there a bit of a hybrid between the options? Is there an opportunity where we do some planting mixed in with some interpretive signage and really try to get a bit of the best of both worlds, or maybe if we have to phase it in. I think there's some great opportunity for it to be a real feature. So just something maybe for future consideration. It might not be an either or. That's my only thought.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Council, anything further? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just a bit curious about CN and Alberta Transportation and us planting trees on their property. Well, why wouldn't we just go to them and say, hey, we want to beautify the highway and it'll help beautify your property too? Would you like to contribute to the project? We'd like you to each cough in, 50% of the project, please. Have we tried that approach? I mean, if I had a neighbor and I was doing something, that's what I would do. And that's sort of question one. And question two is like, this was in last year's budget and we still don't have an agreement with these guys. So what's the story behind that?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Ms. Juke?
Thank you. And through the chair to the rest of council. So with regards to the co-funding question, certainly would be a question that we would ask CN. It is often difficult to get agreements with CN about use of their land. And so we're not optimistic that we may come up with a lot of cooperation, but we're hoping for the best. And there were trees there before that have failed, so they may be interested in allowing us at least to do that. We would ask for co-funding, certainly, and also look for grants, because there are currently grants for rewilding and for tree planting in Canadian communities. So we would be searching for that as well. And then with regards to your second question, so this was one of the CPPs that was approved with budget, but had to be brought back to council for additional information. It simply wasn't possible for us just to manage all of our projects and get this before you in this way before budget. But during the budget deliberation cycle, we kind of left the matter and thought we would do it after and see what thoughts. So that's where we're at now.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Juke. Follow up, Councillor Taylor?
No, just comment, I share Counselor survivability of the trees, so I probably wouldn't vote for it on that angle, but to get another option brought forward might be interesting.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Council, any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council refers the Beautification Highway 16 2023 capital project to a future committee of the whole meeting for further discussion of planting and other screening options. Councilors, please vote now. That motion carries unanimously. Brings us to item 6.2 of our amended agenda, the non-residential tax incentive bylaw number 1162 TAC 2, second reading. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor, to members of council. So this is being brought back for, and we're at this time only recommending second reading. This was brought forward at the last meeting as well, but this is to provide for an amendment to the non-residential tax incentive bylaw that would allow for an additional, the main change being an additional tax incentive for very large developments that would be over $250 million or more in assessable property. For clarity, the only business at this time that would be anywhere close to that number would be the pulp mill. So that's what we are proposing. There was a comment on clarification when it comes to, can you apply for numerous parts of land if you as one developer or one owner can meet that threshold over a variety? And the answer is you can't. It is only for the non-residential property, which is the subject of the application. To make that clear, we could pass second reading as amended to say parcel with the and not land, and that would probably provide further clarification on that point. Other than that, I don't have anything unless there's any questions from council.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councilor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move to amend the bylaw per CEO Panasic's suggestion to change land to parcel. So it clarifies that it's an individual property and not a conglomeration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. And let's get that motion up there and make sure that we like the wording of that.
Yeah, I'd be looking to CEO Panasic to provide the wording for it.
CEO Panasic, can you help out our admin assistant, executive assistant?
Mr. Mayor, if that fits their requirements for administration and they have a clear understanding, I would be fine with that. Thank you.
And you're satisfied with that, CEO Panasic?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the bylaw that council amend bylaw 1161 TAC 2 to replace the word land with parcel. And discussion. Councilor Taylor.
I didn't quite understand the implication of that. I'm sorry.
CEO Panasic.
Through the chair to members of council. So there really is no change. I think this is just a point of clarity where sometimes people can assume that land could mean multiple or multiple lands. When it's parcel, it's more specific to one individual. So it's just it's a wording thing, just intended for clarity to make sure that everybody's clear that you cannot apply for numerous different parcels. It's the one parcel that you are applying for.
Counselor Taylor.
So
Member
if you
Pfeiffer.
have a super big project that's gonna go on over, 7 years, you can only apply once for a particular parcel. Or could you apply for this parcel and then next year apply for this parcel and then next year apply for that parcel?
Opinasek.
Through the mayor to members of council. No, so there were some specific exemptions that we've included in here. So especially specific to tax exemption B, if you are to apply for a tax exemption for any one parcel or parcel of land, that land is now no longer eligible for further tax concessions. Tax exemptions A, depending on any further expansions that you make, there is the possibility that you could be eligible. But for tax exemption B, once a parcel receives that benefit, you can no longer receive any tax incentive as is according to this bylaw.
So the stuff that you can apply for beyond that parcel to other parcels that you have, it depends on the type of exemption you're applying for.
Opinasek.
Through Mary, yes, that's correct. So if you are eligible for a larger tax concession through tax exemption B, you can get that. It doesn't exclude you from still getting tax exemption A on other parcels if those parcels are eligible. But what this is saying is that once you've received tax exemption B, that parcel is now, for lack of a better term, sterilized from receiving any further tax exemptions, and just due to the fact that it's a much larger tax exemption. So that was the reason for that.
Thank you, Opinasek. Counselor Taylor.
And any other lands in the development that you're doing as well. For B.
Opinasek.
Through the mayor to members of council. So it's only specific to one parcel.
Boys.
If there's numerous other parcels and they, depending on your development or expansion, it meets the criteria for either tax exemption A or B, you could still apply for that specific parcel. But what we're saying is that you can't take, no one owner can take into account numerous parcels in order to try to combine your assessment to get over the threshold that you would need for a larger tax concession through tax concession B. It's saying that your application is specific to one parcel of land and the accessible improvements that lie on it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I get that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor
Wow. Got it.
Taylor. Counselor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I have it too, but I just want a little bit more clarity. So if I had a parcel of land and I was going to do a 3-phase build, the first phase, I could apply for the non-residential tax exemption. And then when I do phase 2 on that same parcel of land, could I apply again?
Opinasek.
Through the mayor to members of council, I'll assume that we're talking about tax exemption A. So you could at a later date, but you can't, once those tax exemptions have run out, if you make another improvement to that property that increases your assessment over 25%, you can reapply.
Okay.
If you're going to make further large expansions of the project, but it would take a long time because you can't double dip, so to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Opinasek. Council, anything further? Okay, then we'll call the question, and this is amendment to the bylaw that council amend bylaw 1161 TAC 2 to replace the word land with parcel. Councilors, please vote now. Counselor Taylor voting by hand in favor. And that motion carries unanimously. Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council provide second reading to the amended bylaw number 1161-2. You need to speak to it.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. If we can just add as amended to the end of that motion, we'll be happy. Councillor Haas, can you confirm the wording of that?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is the council provides second reading to bylaw number 1161 TAC 2 as amended. Council, any discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. The council provides second reading to bylaw number 1161 TAC 2 as amended. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 6.3 on our amended agenda, Advocacy Bill C-33 Marine Act Amendment. CAO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So this is being brought forward. The Mayor Nissen and I had met with our MP Gerald Soroka to have a discussion about an amendment that's been put forward through clause 120 of Bill C-33 of the Marine Act. So what has happened is that the Bloc Québécois have put forward an amendment that has the possibility of changing the Marine Act that could have the effect on accelerating the set timelines on the ability to load and unload thermal coal at port, specifically Vancouver, where most of the coal from thermal coal from Hinton ends up. So this amendment could have the ability, and it would put that ability into the hands of the Federal Minister of Transportation on whether or not he would like to set accelerated timelines. The timelines as they sit right now is 2030 for this ban. But the concern of an accelerated timeline has to do with our industry partners and the fact that plans have been put in place in order to extract and utilize the resource with that 2030 timeline. There are expansions planned. We don't have a clear understanding of how that would affect that piece. And this also does affect a number of different industries within our community, specifically being coal and railway. So we're bringing this forward for consideration for council to provide direction to administration and whether or not we want to take this on as an advocacy topic for council and to develop a briefing note that we can use to effectively advocate on this issue. So with that being said, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council direct administration to develop a briefing note opposing Amendment BQ5 and include as a town advocacy topic. And if I may speak to that, then,
Please.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think this is just one of those things where for myself, it's a bit of a slam dunk. You know, we certainly have a limited ability to influence, you know, sort of higher level politics. But this is certainly an advocacy piece that I think we need to be taking on for the good of our community. So in short, you know, we're dealing with some really tight fiscal realities right now, you know, rising interest rates, rising inflation, and then to throw into the mix, you know, an amendment that brings uncertainty to a really important local market. I think we have to take a very strong stand on that. And so I'm very happy to support this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question, clarifying question, and then likely a comment, if I may. Just clarifying question, that this is in relation to all marine coal loading facilities, though not specifically Vancouver, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is wouldn't be as simple a matter as switching to a different coal loading terminal. My understanding is this is all maritime coal loading terminals in Canada.
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor and members of council, yes, it is specific to all ports. I was just specifically putting out Vancouver just as an example of the where the Hinton coal will end up. So, but it does affect all ports in Canada.
Thank you, CEO. If I could speak to it quickly. Yeah, I'm in support of the motion for sure. I think with Coalspur Mine, Bighorn Mine being one of the few exporters of thermal coal in Canada and especially in our region. I think it's important that we make our voice known that this would have a significant impact on the local economy and jobs in our community. And I think it's important that we do make a statement that it's important to us that this matter does not move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I think it's broader than just Hinton. We're talking jobs in West Yellowhead. We're talking dock worker jobs. We're talking train jobs. Significantly, we're talking about the federal government's plan to become coal-free by 2030, and the Bloc Québécois moving that forward to as soon as the summer of 2024 through a backdoor mechanism through the Marine Act. Well, if you want to do that, go through the front door and change the exit. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with 2030, but if you want to do that, that's the existing government policy. Go through the front door. So and for the Quebec, with their environmental troubles, the sewage dump, the in St. Lawrence Seaway, the Port Gascon cement plant, and the millions of greenhouse gases that puts in the air, to then come to Alberta and say, well, we don't want to, work on the environment in our province. We want to work on the environmental problems in your province. Seems a little bit hypocritical to me. So to me, this is serious enough that if they get the support of the Liberals and the NDP, that this could shut things down really, really soon. So it should be beyond us. It should be a few other people. It should be the provincial government. It should be the provincial municipality association. It should be, like I say, Yellowhead County. It should be the town of Edson, and we should be looking at a combined approach to the provincial government to get them to do something about this if they aren't already, and it should be a combined approach to the municipality association to do something about that. It's not just a simple letter. So I'm assuming that's what's included in this advocacy piece, is a well flushed out, just to have some sort of impact on this because of the seriousness of what this means. Is that correct? It's not just a letter.
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council. So no, it really a briefing note is just the high level information that we need to be informed and speak from a consistent standpoint as a municipality. The strategy would be something completely different, right? I think that, with working with council, you develop a strategy on any advocacy piece on how you want to push that forward. Who we should be meeting with, who should our partners be, all of those types of decisions will be forthcoming on these types of issues, working with mayor and council.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still in support, but it's a little broader and deeper than I thought originally. So how does this progress moving forward then? How does this come back to council, and what are we looking at for timelines?
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, our intent will be to turn this around likely at the first meeting in January, is our hope, if not the second. But with this, I don't have the specific timelines on considering this, but I believe it's in March. So that leaves a relatively narrow window on this amendment to actually do it meaningfully. So this will be a quick turnaround.
I could follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would appreciate then if, the Agenda Planning Committee and administration could try and get this moved forward as quickly as possible, because I do agree with Councillor Taylor. I think it's important that we draw our municipal neighbors and the province and possibly Alberta municipalities in to help advocate again, to the federal government to advocate our position on this matter. And I think there is strength in numbers, and the more people we can get drawn into the advocacy, the better the chance that it could succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor.
we've been shipping thermal coal out of here for 50 years, right? And the Bighorn mine has been shipping since 2019. This is 300 direct jobs, of which 70% are high income jobs that reside here. So is that sufficient information for you to come back with the strategy that we're talking about, or do we have to provide further clarification?
CAO Panasic.
Through the mayor to members of council, we can certainly include a briefing note and a proposed advocacy strategy, and we can certainly come back with both as separate documents for council to consider at that time.
Thank you, CAO Panasic.
I'd
Follow
like
up?
to make an amendment to the motion if I could.
Can we get
I'm
Councilor
sorry.
Magoon's thoughts on the current
perfect.
topic, and then we'll go there.
Sure, no problem.
Councilor Magoon.
Yeah, and I still support the motion that's on the floor. You know, and perhaps that's what Councillor Taylor is considering, is that I think also perhaps building out a working group of council or a subgroup of council to focus on the problem more specifically is another option. You know, again, just an idea.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. And councilors, I'm going to speak to this one because I've been directly involved with our MP and our MLA recently trying to get to the bottom of this situation. And it has been an ongoing situation. I think that the motion on the floor right now is appropriate in that we do need administration to collect all of the relevant information and provide us with a very clear briefing note on the reality of the situation. It's changed every day last week. And the reality of the situation, as I understand it today, is because of the CUSMA free trade agreement with the US and Mexico, that this ban is actually only going to apply to Canadian coal, and that the Port of Vancouver will continue exporting American coal because that is our legal and trade obligation. So there's lots of details that need to be put together into this briefing note in order for council to make good decisions on our strategy going forward. So I think at this stage, that's where we're at. I do want to clarify with the CAO, do you require a amendment to this motion in order to put together the strategy document, or is this sufficient to get administration moving?
Through the mayor. So based on this, I would bring back a briefing note likely to a future committee of the whole meeting and to discuss with council what our advocacy strategy should be. If council would like me to bring forward and maybe a little bit more proactively a document with council on how we could push this forward, I would ask for an amendment to include that as well. Or it could be a conversation with council at the time of bringing this document forward.
Thank you for the clarification, CAO Panasic. Councillor Taylor.
To me, time is short enough that I would like, when you come back in January, you have a draft strategy. So I'm going to do an amendment to the that I don't know how to do the amendment. You can help me if you like, but the amendment is that action includes at least a starting strategy that we can talk about. I don't want to start from scratch. I want to have your best ideas on how to do that. Please.
Thank you. So administration, it looks like we're going to have an amendment on the motion to add to the end of the motion, the administration also bring an advocacy strategy at the same time. And then what we're going to actually vote on is the amendment only of adding an advocacy strategy to the motion. Thank you, admin. Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be in support of this amendment. I agree with Counselor Taylor. March is going to come quickly and we need to get our, have that strategy, at least so we can hit the floor running and tweak it if we need to, but get things started. And the fact that we're at our holiday season and delayed in that fashion, so the quicker the better. Quite frankly, I'm not sure then how 6.4 I'm going to vote on and getting rid of January 2nd, just because of this, the urgency of this. So, and for all the reasons that Councillor Taylor said, this is bigger. And thank you for Mayor Nissen to explain too the effect on Canadian coal and not others. So thank you.
Councillor Magoon.
Yes, my thanks to Councillor Taylor. I'm happy to support this amendment, and I'll happily volunteer my truck to take the ceremonial load of coal from the mine to the Port of Vancouver, and you're all welcome to come for a road trip.
Okay. Council, anything further on the amendment? Seeing nothing, we're going to call the question on the amendment to add and advocacy strategy to the motion. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. So the motion on the floor at this moment is that council directs administration to develop a briefing note and advocacy strategy opposing amendment BQ TAC 5 and include as a town advocacy topic. Any further discussion from council? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. The council directs administration to develop a briefing note and advocacy strategy opposing amendment BQ 5 and includes as a town advocacy topic. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. That brings us to item 6.4 of our agenda, of our amended agenda. That is the January 2nd, 2023 regular council meeting. CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. I have asked that this be put on the meeting agenda. I believe as of right now, we would have now 2 topics, but previously it was just one. The other one was really cemetery bylaw amendment, I believe, was scheduled, but it was relatively non-consequential or not time sensitive. In relation to the advocacy bill C-33, I don't foresee an issue with pushing that off another week, especially because there is very hazy information at the moment, and we will have to work through our partners with the federal government on trying to get to the bottom of a lot of these details. So I think that the timelines should be okay, and I can certainly commit on providing that as soon as I can to council. But we don't have to wait until the 9th for council to ultimately approve it to start working with our partners and trying to at least book meetings or work in the background on this. So I'm not too concerned about waiting an additional week to have this discussion with council, unless council has a differing opinion. But the only other thing is the 20 staff are off the 25th and 26th. Then the 27th, 28th, 29th, the week prior. That is typically a very skinny season around here where everybody is looking to take some holidays near the tail end and take a week off. So if we need to, we will make it work. But it's just to kind of facilitate staff and some of their time off.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. And knowing how Ottawa works at the Christmas season, it makes sense that we're not going to have all the information required by the 2nd, but the 9th is probably more reasonable. But Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the recommended action from administration to council the January 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting. And that's it. It's been spoken to.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, I'll take my previous comment back. I realize that pulling that together for the second is pretty unreasonable. So and the fact that more information is coming through. So I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, anything further? Then we'll call the question that council cancel the January 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Merry Christmas to administration. And that brings us to section 7 of our amended agenda and 7.1 email from Mr. Art Foss, CAO Panasik.
Through the mayor, I don't have anything specific. But if there, but possibly you would like to speak to this, Mr. Mayor, in regards to a former councillor who has passed away, who served 2 terms in the 80s.
Thank you, CAO Panasik. And yes, I will. So council received some correspondence from Mr. Art Foss, and he was informing us, and I'll read directly. My wife, Aline Foss, passed away from complications with pneumonia on November 19th of this year. She sat on the Hinton Council for 2 terms in the 1980s and served on many boards, including the Yellowhead Planning Board. She was appointed to the Alberta Planning Board, which was the last of her serving the public. We spent the last years living in Carimos, I can never pronounce it correctly, BC. I believe that her obituary will be in the paper this week. No, not yet. I just want to say thank you to the family of Aline Foss, and thank you for her service. 2 terms on council is a great service to our community, and I'm certain that she will be missed. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your consideration to a past councillor. And I'd just like to move that council accept correspondence package for December 19th, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. So the motion on the floor is that council accept the correspondence package for information. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To administration, is it not our policy that when a councillor or a former councillor passes that we our flags are put at half mast for 3 days?
Ms. Duke.
Thank you through the chair to the rest of council. That is typically a municipal practice. I'm not sure if that's been done or not. Facility maintenance can be contacted in the morning to determine that pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. Councillor Race, follow up.
I just have needed, could you repeat that a little louder?
Ms. Duke.
Beg pardon, through the chair to the rest of council. It's a typical municipal practice to lower flags to half mast when a former councillor or elected official has passed away. So we can certainly check in the morning to make sure that that is done. If that is our practice here, I can do that. As Director McLaughlin will be away.
CAO Panasik.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I believe we have a flag policy here that dictates these types of things. So admittedly, this is one policy that I haven't read in a lot of detail, but I will ask staff to follow our policy. And when it comes to honoring Miss Foss.
Thank you, CAO Panasik.
Thank you. I'd appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Anything further from council? Then we'll call the question that council accept the correspondence package for information. Councillors, please vote now. That motion carries unanimously. Councillor Taylor.
I'm not going to make a motion, but I would suggest that a letter from the mayor to Mr. Foss would provide some comfort and explain that the flag is, if the flag's going to go at half mast, thanking them directly for their service, and that if the flag goes half mast, this could provide him with some comfort in his grief.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And I don't think we need anything further from council to make that happen. So. And that brings us to section 8, notices of motion. CAO Panasik, have there been any notices of motion?
Through the mayor, no, there have not.
Thank you, CAO. brings us to section 9, reporting, and that's 9.1, council reports, boards and committees of council. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race. Councillor Chambers. You have to hit that.
So I just had my first meeting with Community Futures on the IRC loan committee. So it was a first loan review for a potential new startup business. So it was a good learning process for me. And sounds like there's a lot of interest and uptick right now in the different offerings from Community Futures, which is kind of indicative, I think, of where we are as a economic society at the moment. But yeah, it was a good learning curve, and it looks like there'll be a lot more of those meetings to come in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only thing to report, I have to thank Councillor Stashik. We had our first BBOC, Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee meeting on the 14th. Unfortunately, I double booked myself. So as the alternate, he stood in for me. But I want to thank him for that. And also Mayor Nissen was also present at that meeting as well. So that's all I have to report this evening, other than to Merry Christmas, everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, policing committee meeting tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as Councillor Haas said, I did attend the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee meeting in his absence, and got to meet the new members and introduce them. And it wasn't a real event-filled meeting, as Councillor Haas said. It was the first one of the new membership. But as is my trend in Councillor Haas's absence, I nominated him as chair, and and he was elected as chair of the BBOC. So Councillor Haas is the new chair. Other than that, we had agenda planning meeting for the Hinton Youth Advisory Council, who will be meeting on Thursday this week. So in the new year, I will report on how that meeting went. And other than that, just wanted to take a quick opportunity to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. And from myself, yes, I was at the Beaver Boardwalk Committee meeting. I also had an opportunity to go to a Evergreens board meeting, my first, and get oriented. And what an organization there. Drinking from a fire hose, but I would like to mirror Councillor Stashik's holiday wishes, and I hope that everyone at home, in the audience, and at administration gets a good break over the course of the holiday season. And of course, councillors, we never stop working, right? Okay, so that takes us to the Chief Administrative Officer reporting, and CEO Panasic.
Thank you, Mayor. So I do have a operating highlight document for council to take a look at and ask any questions. But I will mention that right before this went out, we are able to include the results of the LGFF, or the Local Government Fiscal Framework results, that we've all been eagerly awaiting for years now. And good news, we have received an early Christmas present from that grant. So the LGFF operating allocation for the town of Hinton in 2024 will be 164,000. You'll notice that that's a $0 increase over 2023. But if you remember, the old MSI had front loaded or really doubled up our MSI operating allocation in that specific year. So although it's not an increase year over year, it is about an increase of $82,000 over the MSI baseline that we were receiving. When it comes to LGFF capital, the town of Hinton's new allocation is $1,390,000. So that's about a $289,000 or $290,000 increase over 2023. So good news for the town of Hinton. And they have also provided the fiscal framework funding formula on how how they have come to those numbers. So that's there for consideration, but good news for the town of Hinton.
Thank you, Seo Panasic. Counselor Taylor.
Are those numbers being worked into the budget? Those numbers, or are those numbers maybe come to us when we do like a budget adjustment before we do the tax bylaw?
Seo Panasic.
Yeah, so through the mayor to members of council, this will come forward to council in the new year for the midterm budget adjustments, this being one of them that we will have to adjust for appropriately and have that discussion with council.
This adjustment will be worse?
Yes, on the operating side specifically, I believe, and although our CFO is not able to be here, I am fairly confident that the budget numbers that we've included went back to the MSI baseline of 2022 of about 82,000. So I believe we're looking at 82,000. Don't hold me to that if we left it at 23, but I believe that we had reverted those numbers back to the previous amount. So it will be
plus 290 for capital. Yeah.
Plus 290 for capital, which you typically don't necessarily budget for, but that will give administration some more leeway in order to assign how we are going to fund our capital. And that will be assigned for all of our capital projects, including the additional 290.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Seo Panasic. Counselor Haas.
Yeah, I just have a quick question under Public Works, and it's just a follow-up with the guardrails. I saw recently that some guardrails are being repaired on Switzer. And I'm just curious, because we had also the capital project for guardrails, one on I think it was West River Road, and then another one up on I can't remember what the street is there, but by West End Grocers. Are those also pending to be completed? I'm just thinking because it's the slippery season obviously now, and those could be handy.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Through the mayor to all of council. So the guardrail on Switzer was due to a traffic hit, and so we're dealing with that on as you know, as road things happen. The one on West River Road has been repaired. That was in the budget.
Yep.
The one on Windy Andy, what we did there was actually simply removed it. After I started and we went out and reviewed the project and looked at it closely, the slopes there are more gentle than a 3-to-1 slope. There really is no need for guardrail in that particular location from a road safety standpoint. So we actually removed the guardrail. Part of that decision was looking around, if you went even 50 meters south of that proposed project where the bridge file is of the where the creek crossing is, that should have guardrail and very drastically. So my first thought was, well, maybe we should put it in there instead. And so when I took that idea back to Public Works, they said, well, let's go for a drive. And they showed me a number of places throughout town that should have guardrail. So we just elected to remove that guardrail from Windy Andy, is what we did there. So that's your full story.
If I may just quickly follow up, then I probably can expect 2025 some capital projects potentially for guardrails. Is that
through the chair to all council, we will have to put together a plan. I'm not even sure if we'll get to that in 2024. The lack of the guardrail on the bridge file will get flagged when we do those bridge inspections that are now in the budget. So all the real bridges will get looked at for guardrail through that process. And in terms of the rest of the roads, we'll just have to determine how those priorities rank against all the other things we have in town, and bring that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anything further? Okay, that will bring us to section 10 of our amended agenda this evening. And we'll need a motion from council. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we go into closed session.
Thank you, Counselor Hawes. Thank you, Counselor Taylor. You are correct. We did not cover the council action pending list. We're going to pull this motion for closed session back, and CAO, is there anything further to cover off the action pending list?
Through the mayor, no, there's not, unless there's any questions from council.
Thank you, CAO. Counselor Taylor.
I had two. One's kind of minor, but one maybe isn't so minor. One is that I never did see the letter to the public for the what was that, the fire related topic that we did? You know, for we did a letter to the minister. You know what I'm saying? I never saw a copy of it. I just would like to see a final copy of it if I could. I think that's just something I'd like to see. If that's gone ahead, assume that we made some minor changes, we sent it on to them and haven't seen it.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor, and CAO Panasik. You can make sure that all of council gets a copy of that letter.
Yes, I will.
And just to confirm, we did send that off, correct?
Through the mayor, I believe we did. We finished it. I looked at a draft for your final approval, and then that went back to staff, but so I believe it has been.
Thank you, CAO Panasik. Any further clarification required there, Counselor Taylor?
Well, I have one more point.
Can I get Counselor Stashik and then come back to you?
Sure.
You, Counselor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. Yeah, because it's related to the letter. And just a question for administration, those types of advocacy letters, are they not generally included as information items in our information package? So the public's aware that those are sent out on behalf of council?
Ooh. CAO Panasik.
Through the mayor to members of council, I'm not aware of that practice. I think it's a good one. I just wasn't aware of that as a practice here at the town of Hinton. Typically, I haven't done that in the past. I don't believe I've done that being here, but if that's council's preference on how we handle that, I think that's a great idea and we can do that.
I can follow up. Would administration require direction for that? I don't recall if it was for sure or not either, but I'm quite certain they did go out as part of they'd be in the information package in the agenda. And then we knew it went out and the public knew too. I could be mistaken. Probably am.
CAO Panasik.
Through the mayor, I'm okay with those without council direction on that. That's just kind of a practice thing that we'll take under consideration. And I think that's a good practice going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Stashik. Counselor Taylor, did you have another question?
Yeah.
Counselor Taylor.
Yeah. I looked at the action pending list and I was thinking about the ATE program. And I noticed that there was an motion that Councillor McGowan made on November 14th that was not included in there. And that was Committee of the Whole motion 23114-15. Seek consensus to bring to a regular meeting of council a request to renew and update the contract for the provision of ATE with Global for a period, giving special consideration to significant increases in time spent in schools, high visibility enforcement vehicles, significant reduction in time. I can't read what I wrote. No attempt to hide enforcement vehicles, those kind of things. So I'm wondering what happened to that motion? Is it there now? Okay, sorry. It's just not in the paper copy I saw. Okay. It's covered. Take back what I said.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Studious homework. Okay. How about the council action complete list? Anyone have any comments on the council action complete list? Okay, then we're back to Counselor Hawes' original motion of moving into closed session. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question that council move into closed session at 7:40. Councilors, Yeah. And administration, can we get the question up? Oh, thank you. Counselors, please vote now. 7:41. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, those in the audience, for joining us. Have a happy holiday.
Last minute.